In a past life, my roommate was followed home one night. I urged her to call the police, but we never expected the stalker to be a famous, wealthy heir from the capital. The heir claimed he followed her because he liked her, but humiliated by the incident, he left the country in a rage. Later, when my roommate fell into destitution, she pushed me from an abandoned building on a dark night. She said it was all my fault for meddling, that I ruined her chance to become a wealthy man's wife. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I urged her to call the police. This time, I didn't try to persuade her. Instead, I said calmly, maybe it's just a coincidence. After all, you're not the only one who uses this road. The moment I said that, Linny faltered for a second, and the words she was about to utter came out flat and dry. But I've heard it's not very safe around the university district lately. I sneered inwardly, so she knew it was unsafe too. At the start of the semester, Linny was often left alone because of her family's poor financial situation. Few were willing to talk to her. I couldn't stand seeing that, so I took the initiative to befriend her. Later, because of her timid nature, I often stood up for her, which ended up making me quite a few enemies. In our past life, she came back from her part-time job one night, her face pale and her whole body rigid. The moment she entered, she grabbed my hand and said, "Nwan. I'm so scared. Someone was following me." During those days, many people reported that there were suspicious individuals near the school who deliberately followed female students and exposed themselves in disgusting ways. The counselor also repeatedly warned everyone not to go out for casual walks at night recently, as there was no telling what that creep might do. But Lin Yi had a part-time job, so she had to grit her teeth and go out anyway. Little did she expect that on her way back, she genuinely felt someone following her. After being on edge the whole way, she finally couldn't hold back and spoke to me. I was genuinely worried about her at the time, so I patiently comforted her, advised her to report it to the police, and suggested she stop going to her part-time job for a while. At first, she hesitated a little. The part-time job, I don't want to quit. I knew she was running low on living expenses, but every time I offered to lend her money, she'd blush and refuse. So I tried to reason with her patiently. Taking a couple of days off won't make a difference. If they really are dangerous, it's too risky. Besides, it's not like the police will catch them right away just because you report it, is it? Sure enough, the person who had been following her was caught the very next day after she reported it, but no one expected that this person was none other than Gu Chen, a well-known rich kid from the capital, as the police forcefully handcuffed him. His face was filled with rage. "Why are you arresting me? Are you out of your minds?" When questioned by the police about his motives, he was evasive. So what if I like her? It was obvious that Gu Chen was just making up an excuse to avoid escalating the situation, but that wasn't enough to let him off the hook. The police still took him to the station. Gu Chen went abroad shortly after. No one else ever found out about those words, except for me and Lin Yi. But I never imagined that Lin Yi would believe that lie for the rest of her life. Even when she ended up destitute, she still blamed everything on me. On the day Gu Chen got married, the lavish wedding was live-streamed across the internet. For a moment, netizens couldn't help but sigh with envy. And Lin Yi was no exception. She was convinced that if she hadn't called the police back then, she would have been the one living that enviable life as Mrs. Gu. So, under the pretext of not having seen each other for years, she asked me out and kept me there until the dead of night before finally letting me leave. Later, on the way back, she even had someone follow me, cornered me in an abandoned building, and personally pushed me off. In my final moments, my eyes were filled with the sight of her hideous face. "Xiang Wan, mind your own business in your next life. I hate that goody two-shoes act of yours the most. It's all your fault that nobody likes me." It was only then that I realized she never cared for my kindness at all. She simply had no other choice. She always resented my vibrant personality and looks, believing that my presence overshadowed her and was the reason no one liked her in college. When someone finally showed interest in her, a wealthy heir from the capital, no less, he ended up going abroad because of my ill-timed advice. So her hatred for me grew even deeper. She even secretly stirred up trouble between me and our classmates. All to drag me down to her level. She relished my protection, yet yearned to see me floundering in the mire. What utter hypocrisy! If I had another chance, I would never help that ungrateful wretch again. I closed my eyes, filled with hatred, but to my surprise, the excruciating pain I expected never came. Instead, I was sent back to the day she was being followed. This time, I did as she wished and didn't stop her. I wanted to see if, without me, she could really become the enviable Mrs. Gu she always dreamed of being. Seeing me remain silent for so long, she grew anxious. Nguan, you know how much I need this part-time job. I have to go. I nodded, putting on a look of genuine concern for her. Well, you could go during the day. It's not like you have many classes this semester. No, Lin Yi refused without a second thought. Seeing my puzzled expression, she realized she had overreacted and lowered her voice. Nguan. You know I don't want anyone to find out about my part-time job, but I knew it wasn't about embarrassment for her. She was afraid of ruining the image she had worked so hard to maintain all this time. Although she refused to accept direct money transfers from me, she never turned down a meal, which already saved her most of her expenses. She always complained about her small allowance from home, but with her part-time wages on top, it should have been more than enough. She always said she never had enough money because she spent a fortune trying to buy her way into the popular clique at school. No matter how much she earned, it was never enough, forcing her to take on multiple part-time jobs. Now that she's finally making some headway and they're starting to accept her, why on earth would she want to be looked down on again? So, for her, calling the police was always the obvious choice. But this time, without me there to back her up and cheer her on, she seemed really hesitant. She's got the nerve to blame me for everything under the sun, but when it comes to reporting a stalker, she agonizes over it for ages. In the end, she's all bark and no bite. Time ticked by, and the other two roommates returned. She became even more afraid to bring it up. After wrestling with it for a long time, she finally asked the other roommate while I was in the shower, Jojo, did you guys run into anyone strange on your way back? Jojo comes from a wealthy and influential family, with a background even more formidable than the Gu families, but this young lady, aside from being outspoken, isn't pretentious at all. She was one of the first to see through Lin Yi's true nature and has always been disgusted by Lin's act of being frail and helpless. Seeing Lin wearing that pitiful, wronged expression this time, as if the whole world had bullied her, she couldn't help but snap irritably. Haven't seen him, and even if I had, what's it to you? Lin Yi immediately waved her hands dismissively. No, it's just that Nuanyuan said it's not safe lately. She wanted you to come back early. Otherwise it'd be hard to explain to the dorm supervisor. Compared to Lin Yi, Jojo looked down on me, the fool being used as a pawn, even more, and she rolled her eyes on the spot. Let her go and tattle then, as if I'm scared of her. I had just stepped out of the shower and asked in confusion, I never said that. Besides, aren't you the one who always reports our dorm situation to the advisor? Lin Yi immediately flushed red and cut me off. Nuanyuan. Even though our roommate didn't like us, they knew my word was more trustworthy. Another roommate, Gao Yu, said in a sarcastic, mocking tone, otherwise it'll be hard to explain to the counselor, how come you had the guts to snitch, but not the guts to admit you did it, so hypocritical. Jojo warned her outright. Lin Yi, I hate these little games the most. I'm telling you, don't mess with me. Lin Yi flushed bright red with panic, her eyes welling up instantly. That's not it, that's not true. If I didn't help her, she wouldn't dare to explain herself properly anyway. She looked at me pleadingly, and only then did I casually brush it off, saying, all right, the hot water's running out, go take a shower first. Without another word, I went straight to bed. My roommate was a bit surprised I wasn't flying off the handle like I usually do whenever Lin Yi was involved, but she didn't say anything more and turned to go wash up. Lin Yi was still standing there, wearing the same pitiful expression, but I also caught a fleeting flash of resentment in her eyes as she looked at me. I sneered, people like Lin Yi are utterly selfish, only ever concerned with their own interests. No matter how well you treat them, they only remember the one time you wronged them, holding on to that grudge for a lifetime. 2. Waking up in the morning, Lin Yi looked rather rough. It was obvious she hadn't slept well the night before. She asked me with a hint of resentment, Nuanyuan, why didn't you help me yesterday? I didn't want her to become suspicious. After all, making an enemy of someone like her is like planting a ticking time bomb for myself. I couldn't afford to be confrontational, so I replied with feigned difficulty, you never discussed any of this with me beforehand. Hearing it out of the blue, I was completely caught off guard and just answered without thinking. She always thought I was a bit dim. And her expression turned slightly awkward. Well, you still shouldn't have been so blunt about it, Nuanyuan. it really affects my relationship with Yi Jojo. I sneered inwardly. Why should I take the fall for her mistake? So I'm just supposed to suck it up. But I never said those things in the first place. Besides, Jojo isn't a petty person. She even said hello to me just now when we met. A flicker of jealousy passed through Lin Yi's eyes. She had tried to curry favor with her roommates earlier that day, but both had ignored her, feigning hurt. I asked, or is what they said true? Did you really say that on purpose? Perhaps the sadness in my eyes was too obvious, because she quickly said, Nwan, I was just saying it off the top of my head, don't overthink it. After a long moment, seeing me nod, she finally let out a sigh of relief, but by evening, her worries had started up again. After all, she still had to go to her part-time job that night, but deep down, she was genuinely scared, so she came up with a brilliant idea. Nwan, are you free to come with me for my part-time job tonight? Here we go again, she's setting me up, I exclaimed in surprise. I thought you said you weren't going. Then, with a troubled expression, they said, but tomorrow is the weekend, my dad is coming to pick me up tonight. Lin Yi put on a pitiful act and said, Nwan. Please stay with me this time, I'm really scared. Fortunately, I was prepared and said, I really can't this time, my grandmother is sick, I have to go see her, she said, unwilling to give up. I could go with you tomorrow instead. I shook my head firmly. Situation really can't wait. Besides, didn't I tell you yesterday to take some time off? Missing a day or two is fine. Or, how about this? I'll find someone else to go with you. Okay, well, isn't the class monitor free? I can ask him for you. The class monitor has a big mouth. Telling him is basically telling everyone, isn't it? No way. Lin Yi hurriedly refused. Seeing that she couldn't count on me either, she said with disdain, all right, you can head back later. I'll figure this out on my own. I said with concern, be careful, What else could Lin Yi do? She just had to grit her teeth and go. I deliberately asked my dad to wait for me at the school gate for a while that evening. I didn't leave until I saw Lin Yi return to school and Gu Chen sneaking after her, at which point I called security to have him detained. Even though I missed out on a big drama, it's good to have those two stuck with each other. After all, from what I know, Gu Chen's intentions towards Lin Yi were indeed impure. He was pursuing her back then, but it was only because of a bet. It was precisely because he and his unsavory friends caused such an ugly scene that the head of the Gu family ordered him to go abroad. Unfortunately, Lin Yi was completely unaware of all this. In her past life, she was so consumed with regret over not having listened to me and called the police that she paid no attention to what happened afterward. I, however, found the whole affair suspicious. Back then, considering Lin Yi a good friend, I made a point of looking into it for her. I told her. Still visibly shaken, and her expression was a complex mix of emotions, she never brought it up again, and I thought she'd long since forgotten. Little did I know, she held a grudge against me for the rest of her life. This time, I've placed the opportunity right in front of her. I hope she doesn't live to regret it. When I got back, Lin Yi was positively glowing. It was obvious Gu Chen had used the same excuse as in our past life. Back in the dorm, Lin Yi told me, with a bashful look on her face, that she was seeing someone, but she didn't tell me who. I figured she didn't trust me, so I didn't press the matter. Besides, I knew that with Gu Chen in the picture, Lin Yi would soon stop associating with me. Sure enough, the very next day, she was in a hurry to cut ties with me. She said with a bashful look, Nuanyuan, I won't be walking with you anymore. You know how it is with my new boyfriend. He just can't bear to be apart from me. I feigned a bit of regret before agreeing, and so, she threw herself wholeheartedly into her romance with Gu Chen. I wonder if she'll still be smiling like that once she learns the truth. 3. Lin Yi quickly became the talk of the school, with many people looking up to her wherever she went. To cement her image, she even treated the whole class to bubble tea. You're so lucky. Oh, absolutely. Could you tell us how you two got together? The girls who used to look down on her could now only watch her with envy. For a moment, Lin Yi felt utterly and completely satisfied, but of course, she couldn't reveal the truth of the matter and only said vaguely, well, Aiken had a crush on me for the longest time. After he confessed, we just naturally fell into a relationship. The crowd still let out gasps of envy. No way, Gu Chen has a crush on her. Wow, is amazing, Gu Chen actually has a crush on her. With everyone fawning over her, Lin Yi grew even more smug. I was just watching the drama unfold from the corner, staying out of it. Yi Jojo walked over, her tone hard to read. Aren't you Lin Yi's good friend? How come you're stuck sitting here? I didn't hide it. She doesn't hang out with me anymore. Yi Jojo rolled her eyes. Figures, only someone as naive as you would get used as a pawn by someone like her. I was mortified. Do you have to be so openly disdainful of me all the time? Yet Yi Jojo said to me in a calm tone, still, it's best to keep your distance from her. I'd advise you to be wary of her from now on. People like her always seem to have plenty of bad ideas. Lin Yi enjoyed her moment in the spotlight for quite a while, to the point where she hardly ever came back to the dorm. This, in turn, brought me much closer to my other two roommates. But that day, Lin Yi unexpectedly came home, seeing the three of us huddled together watching TV. A flicker of displeasure passed through her eyes, yet, she still called out to us affectionately, I'm home. Seeing that none of us said a word, she felt a hint of awkwardness. Nguyen, I just texted you, why didn't you reply? I picked up my phone, glanced at it, and said, sorry, I didn't notice it. Well, let me tell you all now, Gu Chen would like to treat everyone to dinner tomorrow night. We hope you can all make it. I've already sent the specific address to Nguyen. With that, she left without even waiting for our reply. Gao Yu said, so fake and dramatic. It's clearly a setup. She's here to settle the score with us. Yi Jojo tossed her hair dismissively and said, what's there to be afraid of? He's just a Gu family bastard. He won't dare say a word when he sees me. A bastard. Gao Yu perked up at the mention of gossip, something I'd only recently noticed about her. Yi Jojo said nonchalantly, don't you find it odd? Gu Chen is always referred to as a rich second-generation heir, but no one ever mentions his actual connection to the Gu family. Everyone in our circle knows Gu Chen is the illegitimate son of the former CEO. The current CEO, being kind-hearted, didn't do anything to him and even raised him. But looking at it now, the current CEO's intentions might not be that simple, Gao Yu said with a gossipy look. What's all this? Come on, miss, you must know something. Spill the beans for us little folks, won't you? Yi Jojo rapped her on the head. You'll find out soon enough. Gao Yu was not pleased. How could you be like this? I put on a fawning expression. You're amazing, Miss Yi. I'm following you from now on, Yi Jojo said with disdain. Get lost. Sure enough, when they arrived at the location the next day, Gu Chen, who had been strutting around with an air of superiority, had a look of pure astonishment on his face the moment he saw Yi Jojo. So, Miss Yi, you and Yi are roommates. Yi Jojo shot him a sidelong glance and said with an expressionless face, yeah, what else did you have in mind? Nothing much, just treating Yi's roommate to a meal. I heard they've been looking out for her. Yi Jojo wasn't buying it. Oh, how come I never heard about this? Gu Chen's face darkened as he was repeatedly humiliated, but there was nothing he could do to Yi Jojo. He could only shoot Lin Yi a resentful glare. Lin Yi, who had originally intended for Gu Chen to vent his anger, also wore a rather telling expression, but she quickly moved past it. So Aiken and Jojo know each other. Yi Jojo rolled her eyes and was about to say something more, but I quickly stopped her. Jojo, Yi went to the trouble of treating us to a meal, and she's found such a great boyfriend. Let's not say anything more about it. Under my frantic, meaningful glances, Yi Jojo gave me a knowing look. You're right. Lin Yi shot me a grateful glance, and I smiled back at her as I always did. After all, how could I shatter her beautiful dream right now? What I really want to see is her fall from grace. So you're the roommate who usually takes care of Yi. Gu Chen noticed me then. His gaze lingered on my face for a long moment before he spoke, his tone carrying a hint of ambiguity. So, what's the beauty's name? For a moment, I genuinely felt sick to my stomach. Lin Yi's expression instantly turned ugly. She didn't want me to have any interaction with Gu Chen, so she answered for me. This is the roommate I've told you about the most, Xiang Wan. She emphasized a few words very deliberately. Just from her tone, it was obvious she must have bad-mouthed me plenty, yet Gu Chen kept staring at me, even extending his hand as he said, so it's you, what a pleasure to meet you. I found his hand rather repulsive and really didn't want to offer mine in return. Fortunately, Lin Yi also didn't want Gu Chen to have too much contact with me. She immediately linked arms with him and cooed, why haven't you ordered yet? I'm starving. The whole way out after the meal, Lin Yi clung tightly to Gu Chen's arm, shooting resentful glances at me. terrified that I might have any further interaction with him. I couldn't wait to get out of there either. The way Gu Chen was looking at me was utterly revolting. Back in the dorm, Yi Jojo said to me with a meaningful look. Not bad, you've been using your head lately, but keep an eye on Gu Chen. Getting tangled up with him could be troublesome, of course. The most important thing is to stay away from Lin Yi. I didn't fully understand, but that didn't stop me from staying inside the school grounds for the next few days. It wasn't until Lin Yi got dumped by Gu Chen, I was shocked. It hadn't been that long, but then I thought, it was just a bet. Besides, Gu Chen has always been fickle, never one to do anything serious, so it's no surprise he got tired of Lin Yi. It's just that these past few days, my eyelid keeps twitching, like something bad is about to happen. Just then, Gao Yu, who had just gotten the latest gossip, came over to share it with us. Guess how Lin Yi got dumped? She didn't even wait for our response and just kept rattling on. Turns out, Gu Chen was only with Lin Yi because of a bet. He made a wager with his good-for-nothing friends to date the bar waitress for just 1 month. Lin Yi happened to be working at the bar, so he picked her. It was so ridiculous. I'm telling you, apparently, Gu Chen had a bit to drink and was staggering after Lin Yi. He almost got mistaken for a creep by security. Only Lin Yi would buy that story about him secretly having a crush on her and needing liquid courage to confess by following her around. Seeing our complete lack of reaction, Gao Yu was puzzled. Why do I get the feeling you all already knew about this? Of course I wouldn't tell her I was reborn. I just brushed it off with a laugh. I already overheard that in the bathroom. Yi Jojo then wore an inscrutable, knowing expression. Let's just say I even know what their bet was about. But for the sake of your collective intelligence, it's probably best I don't elaborate. TCH, undeterred, Gao Yu continued to vividly recount how Lin Yi was dumped. It turned out that Gu Chen had taken Lin Yi to meet his unsavory friends, boasting that he was already halfway to winning the bet, but after a few too many drinks, that lot couldn't keep their mouths shut. They spilled the whole story in the restroom, even teasing Gu Chen for stooping so low as to go after a country bumpkin. Gu Chen just waved it off, saying it was all for the sake of winning the bet. No big deal. He could just dump Lin Yi harshly when the time came. Lin Yi, who was standing right outside the door, overheard everything. She immediately burst into tears and declared she wanted to break up. Gu Chen was a proud man. He would never admit he was at fault, nor would he let a woman he looked down on blackmail him. So, with his neck stiffened in defiance, he retorted, "Fine, let's break up then. But if we do, I'm the one dumping you." Lin Yi completely broke down on the spot, sobbing uncontrollably. She turned and ran out. I was utterly captivated. It was such a juicy, over-the-top drama. If this were a soap opera, Gu Chen would be in for a world of regret, chasing after his wife. But alas, this isn't fiction. With two people who each have their own hidden agendas, I don't believe they'll break up that easily. 5. Sure enough, I soon received a call from Lin Yi. "Nuanyuan, I'm so upset. Can you come keep me company?" I was a bit scared and said stiffly, "Yi, why don't you come back to the dorm? We're all here." "No, if I go back, they'll definitely make fun of me." It seems this really hit her hard. She cut me off without a second thought. "So you're just like Gu Chen, looking down on me too." I was truly at a loss for words in the face of her completely irrational accusation. "That's not it, Yi, it's just... Wouldn't it be better to talk about whatever this is when you get back? It's not safe out there." Lin Yi wasn't having any of it. Her sinister voice came through the receiver. "Xiang Wan, you just look down on me. You're no different from Gu Chen and the others. You're all utterly hypocritical." She abruptly hung up the phone. Yi Jojo and the other girl exchanged a look of sheer disbelief as they stared at me. "See, I told you. Someone like Lin Yi will never appreciate you. No matter how well you treat her, if just one thing doesn't go her way, she'll hold a grudge against you, and you're the only one who's ever been genuinely good to her." I could only manage an awkward smile. After all, I was a fool in my past life, but my foreboding feeling still hadn't faded, and Lin Yi was nowhere to be found. After Lin Yi got dumped, she didn't show up at school for days. No one knew where she was, and even her academic advisor couldn't track her down. Who was getting seriously worried? To everyone's surprise, Lin Yi came back on her own a few days later. She looked utterly worn out. The heartbreak had clearly hit her hard, but her attitude had improved a lot. Instead of being defensive and awkward like before, she openly admitted her mistakes and even said she would accept any punishment. The counselor had some idea of what was going on. thinking the girl was just heartbroken over being deceived in a relationship. He gave her a brief lecture before letting her go. When Lin Yi saw me, her eyes welled up with tears. Nuanyuan, I know you're the only one in this world who truly cares about me. Gao Yu was behind me, speaking just loud enough for her to hear. Weren't you just calling Xiang Wan a hypocrite the other day? How come she's the best now? Lin Yi looked a bit awkward, then her eyes immediately welled up with tears. I was just too angry that day. Wan, I spoke without thinking. Please don't be mad at me anymore, okay? Can you forgive me? I know this look of hers all too well. I'd recognize it even in death. In my past life, she wore the same expression and used the same tone when she asked to meet me at night. Touched, I went, only for her to push me from that abandoned building. My body was shattered beyond recognition, left there until someone finally found the remains. I suspect she's been reborn, just like me, so, as I always used to. I slung an arm around her shoulder and said, "It's okay, Yi. I know you're hurting too. Some things are best left in the past. Thank you so much, Nuanyuan." Lin Yi looked at me with a deeply moved expression, but all I could see in her eyes was pure calculation. Yi Jojo, on the other hand, looked at me as if I'd lost my mind. She asked me in private, "Are you out of your mind?" It's obvious Lin Yi is up to no good. How could you possibly forgive her? I could only tell her. I think Lin Yi still has feelings for Gu Chen. Yi Jojo was astonished. After all that, she's still thinking about that bastard child. I frowned. I'm not sure what she's up to, but I know for a fact she still wants to be Gu Chen's girlfriend. Yi Jojo gave me a mysterious smile. Don't worry, Gu Chen won't last much longer. 6. Lin Yi didn't keep me waiting long. She soon returned to her old self, spending the days with me and going out for part-time work in the evenings. That day, not long after Lin Yi left for her part-time job, she called me in a panicked voice. Wan, come save me, help, how dare you call for help? A man's voice, leaving no room for doubt, abruptly hung up the phone. Gao Yu had clearly heard it too, her voice laced with concern. Wan, are you really going to go save her? I have to go, but I definitely can't just go like this. Yi Jojo, on the other hand, took the direct approach and called the police. "Officer, I'd like to report someone for suspected money laundering." Then, with a grand wave of his hand, he declared, "I'll go with you. I want to see for myself what she's up to." "All right, what's with that look?" I was genuinely moved. In the past, I poured my heart and soul into being good to Lin Yi alone, only to be met with such a miserable outcome. To say I wasn't hurt or disheartened would be a lie. I had almost forgotten what a normal friendship even looks like. It was Yi Jojo and Gao Yu who made me realize that not everyone is as ungrateful as Lin Yi. By the time we rushed into the chaotic, pulsating bar, finding Lin Yi had become a real hassle. Gao Yu didn't think splitting up was a good idea, but the bar was so packed that even holding hands, we were quickly pushed apart in the crowd. I got shoved into a hallway and had no choice but to search by checking each private room one by one. Suddenly, at the door of a private room, I was yanked inside. Before I could even let out a scream, the person covered my mouth. Wan, it's me. It was Lin Yi's voice. "Yi, what are you doing here?" Lin Yi was very anxious. Wan, don't worry about that right now. I asked you to come here so you could help me with something. She pressed her hands on my shoulders, guiding me to sit on the sofa. Seeing my confused expression, she spoke with urgency. Wan, you're the only one who can help me, please. I'm begging you. I'll be forever grateful. What kind of help? My gut tells me Lin Yi is acting very strange right now. I just need to keep her calm for the moment. Lin Yi's eyes lit up. Nuanyuan, Aiken is here too. I was the one who impulsively broke up with him last time, but I've thought it through. So what if his reasons for being with me weren't pure? It won't be long before he falls for me for real. Lin Yi was a bit frustrated. It's just that I haven't been able to talk to him all these days, but I heard what he said that day. So please, Nuanyuan, help me out. She looked at me excitedly. You have no idea how glorious it would be to become Mrs. Gu. Don't worry, if you help me this time, I'll make sure you're well taken care of in the future. My expression darkened. I didn't know how she had been reborn, but I never expected that even after traveling back in time, she was still lost in the fantasy of relying on a man to become Mrs. Gu. How do you want me to help you? Lin Yi grabbed my hand. Nuanyuan, I knew you were the best. It's actually very simple. All you have to do is sleep with Gu Chen. What? Lin Yi completely missed the anger in my tone and just kept laying out her plan. I heard Gu Chen say it with my own ears yesterday. That Xiang Wan is quite a looker. Wouldn't it be great if I could get her into bed? If I were to bring you to him myself, he'd definitely be willing to get back together with me. My face turned ashen. Did it ever occur to you that I might not be willing? Lin Yi was dismissive. What's the big deal about taking a little nap, especially with someone like Gu Chen? I'm already letting it go. And you're going to refuse to do a small favor for a friend. It finally dawned on me that today's whole performance was Lin Yi's one-woman show. I stood up and said, "Don't even think about it." I turned to leave, but Lin Yi wasn't having it. She grabbed my hair from behind and yanked me backward. Caught off guard, I slammed into the leg of the sofa, the sudden pain making me grimace. Seizing the opportunity, Lin Yi forced the prepared substance into my mouth. The drug took effect almost instantly. A wave of restless agitation surged through my body, and my consciousness began to blur. Lin Yi whispered in my ear like a demon, "Nuanyuan, you've helped me so many times before. What's one more?" But before she could go out to find Gu Chen, the police arrived first. 7. With the evidence of the crime laid bare before her, no amount of pleading from Lin Yi would make any difference. Yi Jojo rushed me to the hospital. I was out for a long time and didn't wake up until almost the next afternoon, the moment I opened my eyes. Gao Yu hurried off to fetch the doctor. When she heard I was okay, she breathed a sigh of relief. "You really scared us to death yesterday. We couldn't find Lin Yi, and then we searched for ages and couldn't find you either." I gave her a weak smile and asked, "And then what happened?" Gao Yu perked up instantly at the mention of this. Lin Yi and Gu Chen were both arrested, and they didn't even let Gu Chen's gang of good-for-nothing friends off the hook. They ran into each other right at the entrance. You should have seen the look on Gu Chen's face. It was absolutely priceless. He kept yelling that it was all Lin Yi's fault, and get this, she's a real piece of work. Even with Gu Chen screaming at her like that, she had the nerve to cling to him, wailing, "Aiken, it wasn't me, I love you, why would I ever hurt you?" Gao Yu acted the whole scene out for me with great relish, finishing with a sigh of regret. "I really wish you could have seen it." Lin Yi clutching at Gu Chen's pant leg, crying her eyes out. A complete mess. "Well, Gu Chen is really done for this time. He's going away for sure. Don't think about it anymore. Let's eat something first." Yi Jojo laid out the takeout food. "Don't worry, Gu Chen has truly reached the end of the line this time." Gao Yu was displeased. "Stop keeping us in suspense," Yi Jojo said mysteriously. "Do you know what Gu Chen and the others bet on?" I shook my head honestly. She said slowly, "It's an underground casino. I heard he laundered a lot of money there too." It suddenly dawned on me why Gu Chen had left the country so decisively in my past life. Yi Jojo went on, "Gu Chen, well, he was a bastard child to begin with. The Gu family never thought much of him. If he'd just kept his head down and behaved, they wouldn't have treated him poorly. But no, he just had to go and ruin everything. Now he's been completely cast out by the Gu family, but I hear Lin Yi still hasn't given up on him. Anyone who sees that would be moved. I hope she can stick it out." Lin Yi dropped out of school very quickly. Rumor has it she really did move in with Gu Chen, saying she would wait for him to get out. In the past, because of the Gu family, people would at least show Gu Chen some respect. But now, apart from Lin Yi, no one wants anything to do with him. Even those he had offended in the past have started to suppress him, yet, he doesn't treat Lin Yi kindly either. He believes all this misfortune was caused by her. Poor Lin Yi, still unaware of Gu Chen's status as an illegitimate child, continues to dream of becoming Mrs. Gu many years down the line. Breaking free from Lin Yi was a game changer for me. My quality of life improved dramatically. After graduation, I went straight to work at Yi Corp, following Yi Jojo. This life isn't all that different from my last one, but this time around, I have a job I'm passionate about and a few like-minded friends. That's something I wouldn't trade for anything. Later, Gao Yu and I rented a spacious, bright apartment near the office. Even after Yi Jojo took over Yi Corp, our friendship didn't fade. Whenever we're free on weekends, we get together, we reminisce about the old days. But more often than not, it's Gao Yu who steals the show, animatedly dishing out all the gossip she's collected. Thanks to her, I now know some of our colleagues better than they know themselves. After that, I saw Lin Yi again. She was still living in poverty in this life, even more miserably than in her previous one. The moment she saw me, she tried to run over and hug me while crying, but the security guard stopped her. She stared at me in disbelief. "Nguan Nguan, it's me, don't you remember me? I looked at her with a cold expression. I don't think you ever considered me a friend. Lin Yi was slightly embarrassed. Nguyen, I was completely out of my mind before. I didn't want to argue with her anymore, so I just asked softly, do you believe in past lives? Her expression froze instantly. Nguyen, when did you get back? I said slowly. Before you met Gu Chen, she said with agitation. Then why didn't you stop me? I replied flatly. Isn't this the ending you always wanted? I said, enunciating each word slowly, Lin Yi, you deserve all of this. No, you're mistaken. I'm Mrs. Gu. I am Mrs. Gu. She broke down instantly. Why can't I be Mrs. Gu? I'm already with him, I whispered to her. Because, you see, Gu Chen is just a shameful bastard. Lin Yi froze for a moment, then began laughing and crying hysterically. Why is this happening? Why, later. It was said that Lin Yi's mind had snapped, so, under the bridge, there appeared another female beggar. A madwoman who would shout at anyone she saw, I am Mrs. Gu, I am Mrs. Gu, then she would cry out again, I was wrong, but none of that had anything to do with me anymore. Story 2, my mom was born with a princess complex. When the apocalypse came, we struggled to survive while she splurged recklessly. No, I'll get allergic if I don't shower with purified water. I'd rather get bitten by zombies now than eat that instant junk food. My best friend is so pitiful, let's take them in. In less than half a year, our stockpiled resources ran out, and my brother and father both died horribly while out searching for supplies. She still showed no remorse, and after I restricted her access to supplies, she grew to hate me. During one escape attempt, she pushed me into a horde of zombies, leaving me to be torn apart. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the beginning of the apocalypse. My mother was about to use our reserve water for a bath. I'm too dirty. I'll die if I don't shower. I snatched the water source, then die for me to see. Starting today, resources will be allocated fairly. No one gets special treatment. You know I use more water than others. You're clearly targeting me. My mother frowned and scolded me. Despite being in her 40s, she maintained her youthful appearance like a young girl, her beautiful eyes brimming with tears. Looking pitiful, I picked at my ear, pretending not to hear, and directly started distributing the supplies. Seeing my mother throw a tantrum, my father tried to mediate. Moira, in times like these, it's even more important for our family to stick together. In my past life, I thought the same way. Only through unity could we grasp a sliver of hope in the face of the apocalypse. But my mother, Dahlia, was born with a princess complex. She was like a pampered begonia, only able to survive in a greenhouse. She used my stockpile of purified water for baths, refused to eat instant food, and threw away anything the moment it expired. Originally, the stored food and supplies were enough to sustain our family for 2 years. In fact, it ran out in less than half a year. My father and brother were tragically surrounded and killed by zombies while out searching for supplies. With supplies running low, I had no choice but to restrict her. Despite this, she remained unrepentant, secretly squandering resources whenever I went out. I got angry and scolded her a few times, which made her hold a grudge against me. While evacuating to the safe zone, she deliberately took advantage of my unpreparedness and pushed me into the zombie horde. Moira, with so many supplies, you actually wouldn't let me use them. Don't even think about controlling me anymore. Just die. No one would indulge her after experiencing something like that. I remained silent and continued distributing the supplies, since they didn't understand my good intentions. I just picked out my share. Seeing so much water gone, Dahlia threw a tantrum like a child. Moira, let go. If I can't bathe with water, my skin will get worse. I sneered. You're worried about bad skin when your life's at stake. Do you know how much water you've used in these 3 days? It's enough for my family to drink for a month. Dahlia didn't expect me to yell at her, nor did she realize she'd used so much water. She stood there frozen in shock. After a long pause, she bit her lip and cried pitifully. I just like being clean. I don't want to become ugly. Cashin held her and said, don't cry, baby. You can have mine and Phoenix's share. My brother, who had been silent all this while, took the things from my hands. Mom, Dad, I also agree to divide the supplies. Ignoring Cashin's expression, he quickly dug out a portion from the pile of items. Phoenix put down his belongings and turned to look at us with profound eyes. This disaster might last for a long time. Could it be that my brother has also been reborn? My brother was scribbling on a piece of paper, and when he saw me coming, he looked up and squinted at me. Why do you suddenly want to divide the supplies? I forced a laugh. Mom uses water too quickly. It'll run out in less than half a year. Clearing my throat, I voiced the question in my heart. Bro, do you believe in reincarnation? My brother suddenly looked up, his eyes filled with shock. You too? I nodded, and after confirming we'd both been reborn, we exchanged information. Turns out, to save his own life, my father actually lured my brother into the zombie horde. I laughed bitterly. Didn't my mother also push me into the zombie horde? This couple was truly made for each other. My brother is a medical student, and he was supposed to be doing his internship at the hospital this holiday. Before the internship, our whole family went on vacation to a villa in the suburbs, unexpectedly. Before we could return, my brother received a video sent by his classmate. In the video, a patient lying on the bed suddenly jumped up and bit the nurse's arm. My mom was so scared that she clung to my dad, who comforted her by saying the patient was having a rabies episode. My brother watched the video several more times and finally reached a conclusion that shocked us all. No, that person has cadaveric spots on their body. When a movie plot became reality, besides being shocked, we went out and stockpiled a large amount of daily necessities. Since it was the suburbs and news hadn't spread, our family bought out all the nearby supermarkets. All kinds of canned goods, bottled water, and long-lasting instant food piled up in the house. Dahlia wasn't satisfied though. She never ate instant food, insisting on balanced nutrition for every meal. For this reason, Cashin specifically bought 2 refrigerators just to store meat, vegetables, and skincare products. Fortunately, the power grid hadn't collapsed in the early days of the apocalypse, and the villa still had solar power, making it no problem to maintain 2 refrigerators. Our whole family dreamed of stockpiling supplies and living comfortably during the apocalypse. Even clearing a plot of land in the villa to grow vegetables and raise chickens. Little did we expect extreme weather and water shortages would completely shatter everything. The aroma of pan-fried steak wafted into the room as Cashin went to call his beloved wife for dinner. My brother swallowed hard, and I smirked while promising to treat him to a good meal. In the restaurant, there were exquisitely plated steaks paired with red wine and candles. I turned on the light, took out some beef slices from the fridge to stir-fry, and also prepared boiled prawns and stir-fried greens. After blowing out the candles, my brother and I wolfed down bowls of rice. It smells amazing. I haven't eaten anything this delicious in so long. Dahlia, dressed in a little black dress with exquisite makeup, was full of anticipation for a romantic candlelit dinner, only to see half a table of leftovers. My brother let out a satisfied burp and slurped down another can of bird's nest soup. What are you eating? Do you know how hard this is to find? I can't even bring myself to drink it, and you've gone through 10 cans. Dahlia stormed downstairs in anger, clutching the bird's nest jar heartbrokenly. I patted my belly and said, "This is our share, we'll eat it however we want. Who are you to interfere?" My brother chimed in. "Who are you to interfere?" Dahlia grabbed my collar, trying to dig the bird's nest out of my mouth. Only then did she realize I had applied the face mask she couldn't bear to use on myself. I said with a cheeky grin, "This mask works really well, and that cream is also great for hands and feet." "Mom, what other good stuff do you have? Don't keep it hidden away." Dahlia had no time to continue wrestling with me, turning instead to rummage through the fridge for her face masks and bird's nest. The moment she opened the fridge, she broke down screaming. Why are so many of my things missing?" Hearing her scream, Cashin rushed downstairs to find his delicate wife sobbing while hugging the fridge, then noticed the messy dining table. "Honey, what's wrong?" My mom threw herself into my dad's arms. "Honey, they all bullied me. They ruined my skincare products and bird's nest. I just used a little more water. Why are they treating me like this?" She cried pitifully, tears streaming down her face like pear blossoms in the rain. In the end, my dad promised to go out and find more tomorrow. And only then did she stop crying and smile. The sky gradually darkened as my brother got up and went upstairs. He didn't forget to remind me, "Lock the door, and no matter what you hear, don't come out." The night had fully fallen. Out of habit, I turned off the lights and slept by the door, clutching a kitchen knife. The villa was brightly lit. My mother was afraid of the dark and would never turn off the lights. In the living room, Cashin cleaned and redecorated again, preparing a romantic candlelit dinner for Dahlia. After eating and drinking their fill, They turned the speakers up to maximum volume and drunkenly started dancing. Even though the villa was in the suburbs, these actions would undoubtedly attract zombies. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, followed by the sound of the door opening and screams. "I know, it's all beginning, help, zombies." Dahlia screamed loudly and tripped over her dress while running away. Cashin grabbed a chair and smashed it hard against the zombie, but instead of falling, the zombie pounced and pinned him down. They stood deadlocked in the center of the living room as Dahlia scrambled up, ran into the kitchen, and grabbed a cleaver, yet she hesitated to strike the zombie. "What should I do? I can't bring myself to." I rushed out of the room and slashed the zombie's neck with a vicious chop. Finally, the zombie lost its mobility. Cashin pushed aside the chair and the corpse. Lying on the ground in shock, I threw the kitchen knife outside, locked the door, and pushed some tables and chairs against it. After cutting off the power, I sat on the ground exhausted. Dahlia screamed again, "Turn on the lights, it's too dark, I'm so scared." A beam of light shone down from the second floor, my brother holding a flashlight with sleepy eyes. "Power outage, why is everything such a mess?" My brother's acting skills could rival an Oscar-winning actor. In my past life, it was my brother who decapitated the zombie with a single slash. That night he couldn't reach his classmate who was interning at the hospital, and worried so much he couldn't sleep. Upon hearing the scream, he hurried downstairs, just in time to see me hitting a zombie on the back of its head with an iron rod, and the zombie turned to pounce on me. Dahlia was so frightened she collapsed to the ground, while Cashin immediately ran to comfort his delicate wife. Leaving no one to care about my survival, the zombie's foul mouth nearly bit me as I closed my eyes in despair. Suddenly, thick, icy blood splattered across my face. My brother stood wielding a cleaver, his face twisted like a demon returned from hell, covered in gore. Dahlia feared we were infected and insisted on driving us out. My brother threatened me with death, and in the end, we were locked in the basement for quarantine. That very night, I developed a high fever. Dahlia refused to give me medicine, insisting it was a sign of turning into a zombie. It was my brother who snatched a few pills and forced them down my throat. The flashlight beam shone on my face as my brother squinted his fox-like eyes, scrutinizing me for a long time. He sighed and slowly walked downstairs. This time, it was my parents who got blood on them. When my brother suggested isolating the two, Dahlia cried for a long time and refused outright. I threatened them with a blood-stained kitchen knife, and only then did the two reluctantly go into the basement. Seeing the two leave, my brother didn't understand why I wanted to save them. The time just now was too short. I didn't have time to talk about what happened after his death in the previous life, so naturally he doesn't know what occurred afterward. Spare their lives tonight not only to take revenge slowly, but also because extreme weather is frequent, and Cashin happens to have stored a lot of gasoline. Otherwise, we would have frozen to death long before being bitten by zombies. Zombies are just the beginning of the apocalypse. The real hardship is the coming cold wave. 3. When winter came, the zombies' movements slowed down. The survivors didn't rejoice for long before realizing it was too cold. Many hadn't anticipated extreme weather and were unprepared with fuel or warm clothing. Fortunately, the gasoline Cashin had hidden came in handy, and we survived that winter. However, because Dahlia was afraid of the cold, she would always secretly use more and then blame me for it. Even though Cashin saw through her little trick, he played along to make his beloved wife happy. He still locked me outside for half a day, and in the end, I lost 3 fingers to frostbite. Early in the morning, after reinforcing the car with my brother, we set out to search for supplies, water, fuel, food, medicine, and various agricultural tools. In the early stages, it's impossible to obtain weapons, but sharpened agricultural shovels and pitchforks can be quite lethal. On our way back, we also discovered an abandoned villa district. After raiding the area and eliminating a few wandering zombies, we selected one villa as our base. Next, we moved between the 2 villas, continuously transporting supplies to our base. This was far from enough, as the supplies would inevitably run out one day. To make it easier to go out and search for supplies, we specifically acquired a truck. However, along the way, the gas stations were almost all empty. Without gasoline, the vehicle was just a decoration. Cashin had already hidden all the gasoline at this point. We brought in cement again to reinforce the outer walls and basement of our base. While they were in quarantine, my brother and I practically turned the villa upside down. But even by the time they came out, We still couldn't find the gasoline. After just a few days of peace, Dahlia started causing trouble again. She was so terrified that she hadn't rested well for days, and her skin condition was terrible. Just when she ran out of skincare products, after nearly being bitten by a zombie, Cashin refused to go out to find supplies. Not only that, but he also restricted my mom's water usage. Dahlia went crazy for 2 days. But when no one paid attention to her, she gradually calmed down a bit. She stared out the window every day, and I thought she was just bored. Little did I expect, upon returning from scavenging supplies, to spot the car parked in the yard at first glance. The warehouse storing the supplies had its door forcibly broken open, and everything inside was looted clean. My brother pulled out a sickle from the car, and I followed behind him with an iron pitchfork. As soon as we entered, we saw Dahlia holding face masks and skincare products, while Cashin was carrying a huge sack. An 8 or 9-year-old boy was running around the house with a toy gun, firing several shots at us. Kill the zombies, kill the bad guys. My brother grabbed the boy by the back of his collar, and the child struggled desperately, bursting into loud cries. This startled everyone, and my mom's best friend Very was the first to react, telling us to let her son go. The family atmosphere had already been tense these past few days, and on top of that, they took away the remaining supplies we had. Although it wasn't much, every little bit counts, and we just happened to need an excuse to move out. I gave my brother a look, and he immediately understood, pulling out his dagger and pressing it against the brat's neck. I brandished the iron pitchfork to keep them at a distance, and the brat stopped struggling, with bean-sized tears continuously falling. Give me back my things, and I'll let your son go. Upon hearing this, Very nodded vigorously. But Cashin, who had remained silent beside them, disagreed. Very had no choice but to break ties with Dahlia. I worked so hard to bring you skincare products, and this is how you treat me. If your child dares to hurt Milo, I'll smash all the skincare products. Very is the owner of a beauty shop, so naturally she has plenty of stock at home. In her past life, she came with a pile of skincare products. Supplies were abundant back then, and Dahlia pitied her for being a single mother, so naturally took her in. But now my brother and I have taken half of the supplies, and Cashin isn't willing to feed 2 more mouths. They huddled together discussing for a long time before finally agreeing to return the supplies. My dad was about to put the things back in the storeroom when my brother pointed at the truck, signaling him to load them onto the vehicle. After closing the truck door, my brother told me to get in first, then released the brat and rushed into the passenger seat. The brat ran crying to her mother, while in the rearview mirror, Cashin glared at our car with a kitchen knife in hand. I immediately started the car, and just then, a kitchen knife grazed past the vehicle. Had I been even slightly slower, that knife would have struck my brother's head. I floored the accelerator, plowing through several wandering zombies. My brother watched the car growing smaller in the rearview mirror. Slow down, they can't keep up. We hadn't been gone long before Cashin came chasing after us in his car. Just as we expected, Cashin noticed the missing supplies and must have guessed they'd been moved, for, compared to scavenging scattered resources among wandering zombies, robbing us was clearly the better deal. He deliberately switched people and pretended to be weak, all for the purpose of tracking us. But he couldn't have imagined that what awaited him was a trap already set in place. We parked the car outside a villa not far from the base, and my brother and I carried the supplies into the villa. Cashin was very cautious. He didn't choose to act immediately but patiently waited until nightfall, accompanied by faint footsteps and the sound of a door being pushed open. A piercing scream shattered the silence. My brother and I exchanged a knowing smile. The prey had taken the bait. In the hall, Cashin was suspended from the ceiling, struggling to cut through the iron net with a kitchen knife. Seeing us descend from upstairs, he began cursing loudly. Beasts, ungrateful brats, I should have strangled you both at birth. My brother impatiently picked his ear. If we're beasts, then what does that make you? Stop wasting words with him. Hand over the gasoline if you want to live. I pressed the knife against his throat and threatened. Cashin was still playing dumb, shaking his head vigorously. What gasoline? I don't know. Didn't you guys already take half of the supplies? My brother sneered. Lock him up then. Perfect timing. My mom's been wanting to take a bath. How much longer will your water last? Hearing this, Cashin's expression changed. Dahlia has secretly used water to take several baths already, a few days ago. I noticed their water supply would only last a month. If he gets trapped here, with Dahlia's wasteful habits, It probably wouldn't last more than a week. I kept fanning the flames. How could Mom possibly take a secret shower? Don't talk nonsense, bro. Cashin's face darkened further, but he still refused to hand over the gasoline. After 3 more days, Cashin finally couldn't take it anymore. He knocked on the basement door all day until we returned from our outing. I said, "Let me out." In the basement, Cashin had lost his usual graceful demeanor. His lips were chapped, eyes bloodshot. "Give me a bottle of water, and I'll talk." These past few days, I've only given him enough food and water to keep him alive. I tossed him a bottle of water. Cashin gulped it down in one go, still craving more. Cashin said the gasoline was hidden in the villa's basement, and only he knew the location. Fearing he might try something along the way, we tied his hands and drove him back to the villa. Unlike when we moved out, the villa was now surrounded by zombies. As soon as the car got close, zombies would lunge at us. I floored the accelerator and plowed through, knocking down several zombies. I parked the car and took advantage of the moment to rush through the villa's gate. So fun, really fun. The mischievous kid stood on the wall, holding a fishing rod and laughing gleefully. A piece of meat was hanging from the end of the fishing rod, and the zombies, drawn by the scent of blood, naturally gathered toward the villa. He stood on the wall, clapping and laughing at us. "Ha ha ha, you're so stupid, you can't even dodge that. Serves you right." My brother climbed up the wall and kicked the brat down with one foot. The brat burst into loud crying. Very came out to check, with Dahlia following behind while drying her hair. Very hugged the brat while glaring fiercely at my brother. "He's just a child. What wrong could he possibly do?" 5. What if he breaks a bone, my precious? Why is life so cruel to you? My brother still has a soft heart. If it were me, I'd have kicked him straight into the zombie horde. In the previous life, under Very's indulgence, the brat became increasingly unruly. Aside from routinely fishing for zombies, he even set up a ladder outside the villa to sneak out and play more easily. After being bitten by a zombie, the brat hid it from everyone. This nearly led to our complete annihilation, and the ladder outside the wall played its part as well. Allowing numerous zombies to climb in, Very forbade us from killing the zombified brat, attempting to reform him with love, only to be viciously bitten by the child. As more and more zombies flooded into the villa, we cleared them while searching for vulnerabilities. We finally spotted the ladder by the warehouse wall, but it was too late to fix the situation. With an increasing horde of zombies pouring in, we had no choice but to resort to fire. Our already scarce supplies were nearly depleted in this great fire. Fortunately, only the warehouse and yard were set on fire, and none of our family members were injured. After the turmoil, my mother, who took very involuntarily, felt extremely wronged. "My best friend is truly pitiful. Let's give her and her son a proper burial." I was so angry I laughed. If it weren't for this foolish and selfish mother and son, we wouldn't have been so short on resources as to go hungry. Oh. Forgot about the most selfish Dahlia, all for her so-called best friend's funeral, offering up the last of our family's food as tribute to her best friend. Very hugged the brat while wailing loudly. As the zombies' noises grew louder outside, "Stop screaming, the zombies will get in." Cashin was already irritable, hungry and tired, and the crying only made him more agitated. Dahlia tried to speak up for her best friend, but closed her mouth when she saw Cashin's bound hands. The villa was in complete disarray, with snack wrappers and water bottles scattered everywhere. With a dark expression, Cashin led us to the basement. "I can't search without untying the rope." "It's fine, just tell me where it is and I'll go look." Seeing that we had no intention of untying him, he had no choice but to reveal the location. I never expected there to be a hidden room in the basement. Besides large barrels of gasoline, we also found bottled water and food supplies. Dahlia's eyes welled up with grievance when she saw the water. "You hid so much water all this time. Why didn't you tell me? I'd rather pour it out than let these 2 ungrateful wretches benefit." Cashin kept his head down, refusing to engage with her. Even if all this water were given to Dahlia, it wouldn't last her a month. They have even less water left than I imagined, which shows how many showers Dahlia has taken these past few days. Earlier, while the zombies were dispersing, I drove the car into the courtyard. "Stop sulking and come help move the supplies." My brother told me to keep an eye on Cashin while he led Dahlia and Very to move the stuff. Dahlia didn't want to move, whining about either her hand hurting or her back aching. By the time everything was moved, it was almost dark. Dahlia glared at us fiercely, as if we were her enemies. I instantly came up with a bad idea, Mom and Dad. I also think it's a bit excessive for us to take everything. Especially water and gasoline. How about this? My skin has been getting wrinkled lately, and the face masks and moisturizer worked really well last time. 6. Let's make a trade. You give me the face masks, and I'll give you 2 barrels of oil and 2 barrels of water. How about that? Cashin agreed without hesitation, and even very kept nodding. If Dahlia's gaze could kill, I'd have died hundreds of times already. I won't change. I'd rather die than change, ignoring Dahlia's objections. Cashin had very bring out a large bundle of face masks and creams, that was almost all of Dahlia's remaining possessions. Dahlia desperately tried to stop her, fought with Very, and ended up collapsing to the ground in tears. My brother snickered on the side, accepted the facial masks and creams, then unloaded water and gasoline from the car. Since there was too much stuff, my brother and I drove 2 separate cars, in addition to the original truck. The small truck in the yard was also fully loaded. I drove the large truck ahead, while my brother threw the rope tied to Cashin to Dahlia and went straight to the small truck. However, Dahlia wasn't in a hurry to untie Cashin's ropes. Instead, she climbed up the wall using the ladder left by the mischievous kid. It was already dark, and to avoid alerting the lurking zombies, none of us turned on the headlights. In the darkness, a sudden spark of flame rose, illuminating Dahlia's face. Realizing what she was about to do, I immediately turned the car around and desperately shouted at my brother, "Drive, she wants to," but it was all too late. Dahlia threw the fire onto the small truck with all her strength. In an instant, flames pierced through the sky. The small truck burst into rapid flames, attracting countless zombies with its blaze. Dahlia stood atop the wall, laughing maniacally, her eyes brimming with intense hatred. "Burned to death. Ha 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 ha." I stepped on the gas pedal recklessly and charged toward the van. No matter what, I must save my brother, even if it costs me my life. "Bro, jump, I'll catch you." I rolled down the window and shouted, incidentally hitting a few zombies that rushed at me. My brother moved swiftly, timing his jump from the vehicle perfectly. The zombies quickly closed in, following closely behind my brother. My heart was in my throat, terrified that if he slowed down even a step, he'd be dragged into the horde. With a bang, my heart finally settled back into place. My brother rushed into the car covered in dust, slammed the door shut, and urged me to drive quickly. "Drive fast, the zombies are coming, and the car is about to explode." I turned the car around and broke through the encirclement of the zombie horde. At the same time, the small truck exploded, the massive shockwave causing our vehicle to jolt violently. Fortunately, I had already driven quite far and wasn't greatly affected. However, Dahlia and the others weren't so lucky. The car exploded not far from the villa, and Dahlia, standing on the wall, bore the brunt of it. I didn't dare delay, fearing another accident on the road. My nerves were so tense that I didn't even notice my brother had passed out. My slightly calmed heart leaped into my throat again. My brother's back showed extensive burn marks, with large red patches and some areas already blistered. After rinsing with purified water for a long time, there was still no improvement. I was flustered and didn't know what to do. I even started regretting why I didn't bring back a refrigerator. No, why I planned this operation in the first place. If we hadn't provoked Dahlia, my brother wouldn't have gotten hurt. I searched through all the medicine in the base, but found nothing for burns, mostly just antibiotics and cold medicine. Just when I was at my wit's end, my brother woke up, grimacing in pain. My tears fell instantly. "Brother, you're finally awake." I thought, "Don't move, your back got burned." I rinsed it with purified water for a long time. "It's blistered but not broken. What do we do now? We don't have any burn ointment at home." My brother's face was deathly pale, yet he still smiled at me. At least my teaching wasn't wasted. You learned well. Following his request, I found antibiotics and fever-reducing medicine. As dawn approached, my brother developed a high fever. The greatest risk with burns is infection, especially for large area burns. Under normal circumstances, this situation would have required immediate hospitalization. After administering more fever-reducing pills, I confirmed his temperature had dropped. I drove my car to the nearby hospital. When the zombie outbreak occurs, hospitals will definitely be the first to fall. That's why we avoid hospitals and go to pharmacies to collect medicine instead. But for my brother, I had to take the risk. 7. The hospital was in complete chaos. I quietly pushed open the door to the pharmacy and took several bottles of saline solution, syringes, antibiotics, and burn ointment. My brother's condition is quite serious, so injections would be better. The pharmacy is on the first floor. With only a few scattered zombies, I put the medicine bottles into my backpack, grabbed my weapon, and prepared to fight my way out. The sound of a car suddenly came from outside the courtyard. Looking out through the window, Cashin sneaked into the hospital. His face was covered in blood. It seemed someone was injured. The hospital wasn't large, and he quickly found the pharmacy room. I hid inside a trash can, not daring to make a sound, though Cashin looked utterly exhausted. How could I possibly defeat him in a real fight? The rustling sounds of rummaging came from outside, right above the trash bin. That spot contained some anti-inflammatory antibiotics and hemostatic drugs. The rummaging sound stopped, and I let out a long sigh, hoping he would leave quickly. Soon after, the growls of zombies echoed through the hallway. Finally, the sound of a car engine starting broke the silence, lifted the trash can, retrieved the hidden package, and eliminated the remaining zombies in the hallway, got in the car, opened fire, and hit the gas. A seamless series of actions. I was so eager to return home, fearing any delay might worsen my brother's condition, yet everything went too smoothly. Until entering the neighborhood, I suddenly noticed Cashin's car following behind. If my brother hadn't been injured, perhaps we could have confronted Cashin head-on, but now, I stand no chance at all. His car was still following closely behind, sending chills down my spine. Can't let him discover my brother. I drove the car to the villa where he was being held. I forced myself to stay calm as I got out of the car and turned to greet him. "Oh, still daring to follow me? Seems like you haven't had enough of last time's lesson." Cashin's advancing footsteps suddenly halted. My heart surged with wild joy. He took the bait. "Come on in and sit down. My brother's made dinner. It's been too long since we've eaten together as father and son." With that, I walked straight into the villa. The iron net from last time still hung mid-air, but there were no other traps besides this. I was gambling, betting that Cashin's paranoia would keep him from entering. Sure enough, he remained standing in place. I hid on the second floor, watching him drive away through the window. Suddenly feeling utterly exhausted, I collapsed onto the ground, deciding to wait until nightfall before heading back. What if Cashin is hiding somewhere, following me again? As soon as it got dark, I immediately grabbed my things and ran back to the base. In the basement, my brother was still unconscious. There were more blisters on his back, but thankfully he didn't seem to have a fever anymore. I took out the medicine I found and applied some to his back. My brother groggily opened his eyes, and I patted his face to help him wake up a bit. The medication brought back needs to be prepared before it can be administered to him by injection, following his instructions. I injected the medication into saline solution and then inserted the needle into his vein. My brother's condition improved day by day, and my injection technique became increasingly proficient. Cashin did not give up searching for us. The villa area was very large, and from the outside, the base looked completely like an abandoned villa. Several times, he was right outside the base. Time passed quickly, and my brother had fully recovered, apart from the scar on his back. There was no sign he had suffered such severe injuries. Winter was approaching, and the cold wave had arrived. An unusual heavy snow covered everything, as if the whole world between heaven and earth had frozen solid. 8. On the third day of the cold wave, my brother and I were huddled in the basement eating roasted sweet potatoes. He snatched half of my sweet potato and grinned cheekily at me. Considering he had just recovered from a serious illness, I forgave him, casually tossing a few more sweet potatoes into the back passage. I stepped out of the basement to assess the situation. The snow around the chimney pipe had melted again, requiring fresh snow to be spread before dawn, and footprints left outside needed to be covered with snow as well. In the villa complex, apart from us, there seemed to be 3 or 4 other families. During times of energy scarcity, a single careless move could invite unexpected disaster. A man's only crime is owning a treasure. Utmost caution must be exercised in all matters. Besides being wary of neighbors, Cashin and Dahlia remain the greatest threats. They are convinced we're hiding in this villa complex and have come searching multiple times. Despite her lame leg making movement difficult, Dahlia personally conducted the searches. She wore a thick veil, yet her eyes remained stunningly beautiful. so much so that some men would join the search party just to catch a glimpse of her beauty. The man showered her with attentiveness, treating her like a little princess, and Dahlia thoroughly enjoyed it. Just like now, a convoy of cars grandly entered the villa complex. Dahlia was carried out of the car by the leading man, and she planted a kiss on his cheek. The men behind were carrying luggage and moving boxes. Marching in a grand procession into the most luxurious villa, Cashin walked at the rear carrying a box, his head lowered so his face was unclear, only his hand gripping the box was clenched tightly. With Dahlia's arrival, the villa area descended into chaos. She remained the spoiled little princess she always was, unable to tolerate even the slightest hardship in life. They seized supplies and fuel from other residents, even taking people away for forced labor. Dahlia's villa kept its lights on all night, with the modified chimney constantly smoking. As expected, even if they desperately gathered supplies, they couldn't keep up with Dahlia's squandering pace. As fuel dwindled, they set their sights on abandoned villas, taking old furniture and floorboards for fuel. My brother and I did consider moving, but first, the basement is hidden and safe, and second, after my brother got injured, we didn't have the energy to build another hideout. After Dahlia moved in, we became even more cautious, but someone still managed to break into the villa. The floor above us creaked, and the sound of the wardrobe and floor being split apart exploded in our ears. After my brother and I reinforced the basement entrance, we wrapped ourselves in down jackets and hugged hot water bottles. It's so cold, I'm shivering. The men on the floor seem to be talking. If this continues, we'll all freeze to death. Soon there won't even be any wood left to burn. Yeah. But Dahlia can't stand the cold. Didn't she say someone in this villa area stole her gasoline? No way, Dahlia said. Cashin hid it behind her back. Forget it, as long as we find gasoline, we can survive the winter. As the voices faded away, my brother and I exchanged glances. We had to come up with a plan, under cover of night. We set aside enough fuel for winter and moved the remaining portion to the basement of another villa. Now it's time to show our hand and wait for the fish to bite. All men want to win Dahlia's favor, except Cashin. Since arriving at the villa district, he's been almost exclusively searching our hideout. Another heavy snowfall came, and temperatures plummeted to over 40 below zero. Cashin woke up early in the morning and discovered fresh footprints. Since no one had gone out last night, these tracks must belong to us. I crouched in the attic, and after seeing Cashin leave fully armed, I quickly climbed down to call my brother to hide and watch the show. Splash water on the first floor to fake footprints. As long as Cashin follows them, he'll discover the hidden basement, and in that basement, there just happens to be the fuel and food they desperately need. Cashin indeed discovered the basement. Standing in the basement, he laughed excitedly. These are all mine, mine. The next second, the villa's door was violently broken open. A group of men escorted Dahlia inside. She still wore a thick veil, stunningly beautiful beyond compare. Cashin, how dare you claim you're not hiding anything? Tie him up and throw him in the snow to freeze to death. Knowing Dahlia as I do, it's impossible she'd personally chase after us multiple times. The only possibility is she no longer trusts Cashin. Ever since they arrived at the villa, every time Cashin went out, someone would follow him. I originally thought it was a coincidence, until I overheard those two men talking. Dahlia indeed suspected Cashin was hiding something. 9, of course. I had to help make the accusation stick. Cashin was no match for those burly men and was quickly pinned to the ground. Dahlia and the others eagerly went to check the supplies, but the reality left them utterly dismayed. Aside from 3 barrels of gasoline, there was only a tiny bit of food. Furious, Dahlia kicked Cashin several more times. Where are the rest of the supplies? Cashin clenched his teeth and remained silent for a long while. The people around began to whisper among themselves. She couldn't be lying to us, could she? This little bit isn't even enough for one day. Damn, isn't this a scam? The stuff we give that woman is dozens of times more than this. Weren't you willing to? If there's no stuff, there's still people, right, Dahlia? For a beauty like her, I'd do anything. Dahlia's body kept trembling, seeing that threats were useless. Her tone softened as she pleaded with Cashin. Brother Cashin, I beg you, without supplies, we'll all die. You weren't like this before. Cashin spat and couldn't stop laughing hysterically. Darling, you didn't call me that before. You used to call me husband, to build up your own persona. You'd even abandon your dear husband. Do your boyfriends know about this? Do they know you burned your own son to death? Do they know you destroyed My brother and I held our breath. This gossip was absolutely explosive. Dahlia grabbed Cashin by the throat. Shut up, I said shut up. Stop talking. Cashin's face turned red. Looking as if he was about to pass out, a burly man pulled Dahlia away. Cashin lay on the ground, taking deep breaths for a long time before finally calming down. Dahlia was still struggling, pressing against the man's hand and begging them to kill Cashin. Someone's heart softened. Dahlia, even if you're married, I still love you. Don't cry, baby. Cashin laughed maniacally. Have any of you seen what's beneath her veil? Everyone froze in shock as Dahlia collapsed to the ground. You haven't. Right, she always finds excuses to prevent you from looking, yet you've all seen her photos. What a beautiful face. Such a pity it's disfigured. A casually spoken sentence struck like a bolt from the blue. No wonder she always wore a veil. That explosion not only injured her leg but also scarred her face. Dahlia covered her face, tears streaming down. Lies. It's all lies. Please don't believe him. Milo called you ugly, so you killed him, and your best friend. You were jealous of her having a normal face, so you tore off her skin. Now you're trying to kill me too. I'm only telling the truth. You're free to remove your veils and see for yourselves. One of the men grabbed Dahlia's hand and, catching her off guard, yanked off her veil. Dahlia desperately covered her face. Don't look. Please don't. Yet her face remained exposed to the crowd's gaze, as waves of retching sounds and curses erupted. 10. Except for her unharmed eyes, crisscrossing scars covered the lower half of her face. Her lips were curled back, exposing some teeth, with drool trickling out as she wept. I covered my mouth in shock, completely unable to recognize Dahlia's original appearance. The man who had just confessed his true feelings immediately backed off and even kicked Dahlia a few times. Ugly freak, pretending to be a beauty, you disgust me. Ugh. Dahlia crouched on the ground clutching her head, like a pile of rags. The men who once adored her now either beat her or hurled insults at her. In the end, they all abandoned her. The fuel and food in the basement were taken away by the men. Dahlia clung to the last man leaving and pleaded, "Take me with you. Didn't you say you loved me? I'm willing to go with you. I'll do anything." The man kicked her away. "Take a look at yourself in the mirror. You've wasted all the supplies I stored. Originally, I could tolerate you because you're beautiful, but now sparing your life is already showing mercy. Get lost." Dahlia laughed hysterically, clawing at her own face as blood streamed down endlessly. She grabbed Cashin, who was lying on the ground, and demanded, "Why didn't you heal my face? Everything that's happened to me is all because of you. If you can't give me a princess-like life, then you want to ruin me, you scumbag, coward." Cashin laughed in anger. "It was you who set the fire trying to kill Phoenix. What does it have to do with me? The only one in the family who knew medicine, Phoenix, is already dead. You killed her. Serves you right for getting disfigured." Dahlia's hands trembled violently as she gripped Cashin's wrist, drool dripping from the corner of her mouth. Teeth grinding audibly, she drew her dagger and plunged it straight into Cashin's abdomen. Cashin collapsed weakly to the ground, but Dahlia showed no mercy, slashing his face in a frenzied rage. "I deserve this. Die, just die." My brother covered my eyes and whispered, "Don't look." After a long while, he finally released his hand. Dahlia had long disappeared from the villa, and the hall was covered in mottled bloodstains. Cashin gasped with difficulty, moaned in pain, and finally fell silent. The play is over. It was getting dark, so my brother and I went downstairs, ready to return to our base. It snowed heavily all night again, leaving nothing but white between heaven and earth. There was no one else left in the villa area. We moved everything to the first floor and rebuilt the chimney. Our stockpile of food and fuel is sufficient to last until the disaster ends. The water issue has also been resolved, as the thick snow layer can provide a continuous water supply. If Dahlia had been more frugal in the early days of the apocalypse, maybe we could have survived till the end too. Yet there are no ifs in life. "You stole my sweet potato again." My brother sneakily grabbed the sweet potato and ran. "Be a good sister. I'm going out to shovel snow. Just let me have it." "Forget it. No point arguing with laborers. Besides bickering with Phoenix and shoveling snow, I had nothing else to do." The few zombies that weren't completely frozen were easy to deal with. Life just passed by in this dull way. The morning arrived with the first rays of sunlight. as the first water droplet fell from the eaves. I rushed downstairs excitedly and fiddled with the radio. My brother looked at me with confusion until intermittent sounds came through the radio. The government is conducting post-disaster reconstruction. Surviving citizens, please proceed to the safe zone. My brother and I hugged each other screaming. The 3-year-long bitter cold had finally passed. The disaster was over. After packing our supplies and luggage, we set off fully armed. 11. As the snow melted, the zombies became active again, but compared to the early days of the apocalypse, they were no longer much of a threat. Just outside the villa, scattered zombies were gnawing on corpses, so I drove straight through and sent them flying. The corpse wore a thick veil, its face completely obscured from view. My brother sighed. It's all in the past. Spring has come, hasn't it? Yes. Spring has come, the disaster is over, and we're still alive. We must always look forward. The regrets and hatreds of past lives were left behind in that bitter winter. Story 2. My best friend struck it rich suddenly, giving me a credit card with an 8-figure limit on a whim. After a month of frenzied shopping, the news on TV was broadcasting about a mutant virus and roaming zombies. My best friend and I were sitting opposite each other in a villa halfway up the hill. Best friend. I'll be honest, I've been reborn, coincidentally, so had I, and I was reborn with special awakened abilities. I died in the 4th year of the zombie outbreak, a year when humans began to mutate. Initially, some people just felt faster and stronger, but gradually, others realized they had awakened incredible powers. Some gained cheetah-like agility, while others could even fly for short periods. Later, these abilities were collectively known as special powers. I never awakened such powers. But as the captain of the Vanguard team, I was assigned by Area A to activate the quantum shield. However, there was a traitor in the team, and I ended up surrounded by zombies with the activation device. Even in death, I won't let this device fall into the hands of the rebels. At the last moment of my life, a translucent box appeared in my mind. It was small, just big enough to hold a protective shield activator. Waking from the immense fear of death, I found myself reborn a month before the zombie outbreak. Everything was still orderly then, with rules and laws functioning properly. As an orphan, I didn't have many attachments in the world, except for a childhood friend from the orphanage, who had gone our separate ways before the zombies appeared. 6 years had passed without knowing if she was alive or dead. To avoid repeating history, I went straight to my best friend, whom I had fallen out with over a romantic entanglement. Let's make up. If you end up divorcing, I'll help you with your kids. My best friend was very touched and handed me a large sum of money. Here's 20 million. Spend it, and you'll be my favorite woman, although I didn't know how she had suddenly become so wealthy. Things were definitely looking up, so I hid the fact that I was reborn from the apocalypse and started a wild shopping spree with my best friend. She kept chasing after her crush, while I secretly gathered supplies. We both had bright futures ahead, with 25 days left before the zombie outbreak. My best friend called. Zora, I've sent you a location, come over by taxi now. At that moment, I was trying to open the box in my mind with my thoughts, not knowing how many attempts I had made. Though ultimately still ending in failure, arriving at the address my best friend provided, I found it was a sales center in a scenic area, as luxuriously decorated as a 5-star hotel in the city. The reception staff was already waiting at the door and led me directly to the VIP reception room. Miss Sana, this villa comes with the most advanced natural water filtration system, an outdoor swimming pool, a garden, a lawn, and even a very large basement. I was surprised. Why suddenly think of buying a house? My best friend waved her hand. Oh, wasn't it what we agreed on back then? I strike it rich overnight, and you live in a mansion. I didn't expect her to remember our agreement from the orphanage. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I couldn't help but recall the last life. After the zombie apocalypse, the social bonds between people had long collapsed. I put out a reward for finding my best friend, but none who claimed to be her were real. Starting over. All I wanted was to be her savior. My best friend bought a detached villa on the hillside, by the mountains and waters, with beautiful scenery. However, the walls were not high, and evolved zombies could easily climb over them later on. I suggested, how about adding another layer of electric netting, to guard against thieves too? The property manager assured us, our security system is absolutely reliable. Is this your house or mine? My best friend glanced at him, came over to support my arm. In our house, dear, you make the decisions. I coughed slightly. She declared with finality, reinforce the fence, add double layers of rebar on top, and install dual electric nets on both sides, running high voltage through them. The butler replied, that would push the move-in date to May. My friend pulled out her card, get it done in 10 days, and I'll pay triple. The butler's expression changed instantly, no problem. After signing the contract, the butler showed us the house. The interior was fully furnished, but all I noticed was the 5-meter-high garage and the spacious basement. What a great place. Just then, my friend picked up a phone call. What's up, brother? No, I'm not at home. I want to go to the lab too. Oh, I just love seeing you in that white coat. My friend had been courting this science geek for 2 years, living like an ATM, working 3 jobs a month, yet reluctant to buy herself a new dress. After all, her idol never cared about the new color splashed on an ATM, but these matters are trivial now. As long as she's happy, I don't mind supporting an extra idler later on, unless he digs his own grave. While my friend chased her crush to his lab, I rented an electric car and drove straight to the largest agricultural market in the suburbs. In the afternoon, the market wasn't too crowded. I parked my electric car and walked into the largest grocery store, the owner, chatting leisurely with a neighbor. Didn't bother to stand up when he saw a young girl approaching. I knocked on the door frame, here to pick up some supplies. The owner glanced at me. What would you like to buy, little sister? I handed him the list I had prepared in advance. He looked it over and chuckled. Don't play jokes on me, girl, I'm busy here. I crossed my arms and watched him expressionlessly. The supermarket is in a hurry to stock up. If you have the goods ready, I'll pay in full, realizing I was serious. His smile faded slowly. Wait a moment. He then walked to the door and pulled down the shutter. 50 boxes of dried rice noodles, 50 boxes of sweet potato and yam vermicelli, 1,000 pounds of dried goods like black fungus and dried tofu, 100 boxes each of white and brown sugar, 100 jars of wild honey, 50 boxes of salted duck eggs, 1,000 pounds each of dried beef and cured meat. The owner, eyeing the several pages of my list, hesitated. Girl, how big is your supermarket to need so much stock? I wiped my face, putting on a troubled expression. To tell you the truth, our boss has opened a large chain of farmhouses that also sell some mountain goods. You know, there aren't that many mountain goods, so he sent me out to figure something out. The owner nodded with a knowing smile. This is genuine mountain produce. I smiled back and asked about the next item. And this smoked tobacco. Ah, that, we run a legal business here. I can't supply that quantity. Tobacco is a real valuable commodity in post-apocalyptic times. Although I was set on hoarding food, cutting off all external trade was not an option, so I played it off lightly. No worries, we'll take what we can get. Please help out as much as you can. After paying a deposit, I set the delivery address to a town a few dozen miles away, where the tourism driven by farmhouses wouldn't make the large order suspicious, having sorted out the groceries. I also purchased grains and oils in bulk under the guise of charity on an agricultural support website. When I returned to the villa, I saw my friend directing machines to plant fruit trees on the lawn. This coincided perfectly with my thoughts. Fresh fruits can't be stored for long, so planting fruit trees is the best strategy. Seeing me, she enthusiastically explained, these two are peach trees, those over there are pear trees, and the ones in the back are apple and orange trees. Specially bought to bear fruit this year. I was a bit surprised. Weren't you always insisting on planting flowers and shrubs on the lawn? She took my hand sincerely. I find the joy of harvest more appealing, amused by her sudden pragmatism after becoming rich. I teased her, why not just plow this area and plant cabbage? Unexpectedly, her eyes sparkled with excitement. How could I forget that? Seeing her enthusiasm, I tentatively suggested, shall we go buy some hose? To my surprise, she decisively rejected me, turned around, and made a call. Housekeeperly, please arrange for someone to install a new automatic irrigation system tomorrow, and hire a few more people to tidy up the lawn. I was almost moved to tears. Is this the joy of having a wealthy girlfriend? 20 days before the zombies arrived, I finally received the blast-resistant armor and matching weapons I had spent all my savings on, plus 10 drones. Although they weren't as handy as the modified firearms from my past life, such dangerous items were unthinkable in peaceful times. I hid these sensitive items in the basement but couldn't resist taking out a specially made trident steel mace to test its feel. Unfortunately, I hadn't exercised much in this life, and it felt like I was lifting weights. Just then, the figure of my best friend suddenly appeared. I was startled, hastily hiding the weapon behind me. Before I could think of an explanation, the steel mace suddenly felt weightless in my hand. Staring dumbfounded at my empty hands, I collided squarely with my best friend, who sneaked in with a dog. Holding a silver metallic box, she tripped unexpectedly, falling over without a care. Yet still clinging to the box like it was her treasure, I quickly caught her. Still shaken, my best friend stuttered, clutching the box. "I went to the lab today. Yuri gave this to. Oh, it turns out to be a gift from the heartthrob." I helped her up expressionlessly. My best friend is probably going to be one of the safest people when the apocalypse comes, a hopeless romantic. Even zombies would want to run from her. Before a massive stockpile of goods was brought in, my best friend took me shopping at the mall. Looking at the expensive imported fresh foods, I hesitantly picked up a piece of salmon. The salesperson said, "We don't have discounts on our products here, ma'am." My best friend looked at the salesperson. "Bring me 5 fresh bluefin tunas and 5 Atlantic salmons." Then she turned to me, smoothly pulling out a black card. "Darling, what else would you like to eat?" I suddenly snapped back to reality. What was I thinking? I've already snagged a wealthy girlfriend. Lost in the calls of "darling," I gradually lost my practical self. By the time I came to my senses, the shopping cart was already brimming with an array of fresh food. I felt a bit embarrassed. "This won't fit in the fridge." My best friend raised an eyebrow. "Darling, what color fridge would you like?" After buying food on the basement floor, we casually browsed the upper floors where my best friend pulled me into buying several sets of sportswear, and even matched the sizes with coats and shoes. While my best friend was picking clothes, I secretly used my own special ability. Sure enough, besides the activation device, there was also a steel mace in the 40-centimeter square box. Still, I couldn't take them out. If I consider the box as a physical object, why can't I open it? I was baffled. It was my own ability, yet I couldn't naturally manipulate it. What went wrong, or was I just an incomplete, defective product? After picking the clothes, I stood by while my best friend paid, pondering over my rather useless special ability. A space ability sounds explosive, but if it's only one way, isn't that just like a backpack with a broken zipper? And even if it wasn't broken, such a small storage space would be insignificant in the future when abilities rise in the post-apocalyptic world. Coming back to reality, I saw my best friend running towards me with a receipt long enough to mummify someone. "Darling, do you think the clothes we just bought are enough?" I stopped her from unfolding the receipt. "Enough. These clothes will last me till I'm 80. "That won't do," my best friend pouted, summoning the salesperson. "Bring a few more sets. We need to wear them together till we're 100. After the big shopping spree, I took the excuse of going home to pick up a delivery to get off early. The house was quite empty. I had sold most of the stuff, leaving only a small sofa and 4 white walls. Having spent 4 years in the apocalypse, my demand for quality of life has dwindled to nearly nothing. The relentless battles both inside and outside the base are fought simply for the sake of survival. The sofa is incredibly soft, sinking into it feels like being enveloped by a cloud, and the afternoon sun makes one drowsy. In this quiet, lazy atmosphere, I find myself unable to truly fall asleep. Even in a safe environment, my mind remains tense, hearing footsteps ascending the stairs outside. I preemptively open the door. The delivery man at the door keeps his hat pulled low. Only after seeing the note in my hand does he hand over a battered cardboard box. After making the delivery, the man doesn't leave immediately. Instead, he stares at me ominously and smirks. "Young lady, aren't you afraid of attracting trouble by paying such a high price for these kinds of things?" I casually lift my eyelid, tear open the box at the doorstep, revealing the gleaming weapons inside. The man jumps back, alarmed, and hastily looks around. I casually fiddle with the gun in my hand, then skillfully load it and aim it at the delivery man. "How many shots do you think it will take to blow your head off?" After scaring off the man, I pack the handgun and several boxes of ammunition I had bought in advance into my backpack. I managed to doze off on the sofa for a while, only to be awakened by a quarrel downstairs. It turns out that the electrical circuits in the building are aging, plunging the entire block into a blackout. With no indication of when power will be restored, I grope my way downstairs where the gathered residents are already discussing which bathhouses are suitable for emergency use in the next few days. Suddenly, I remember that, 4 years ago, Just before the outbreak of the zombie virus, bathhouses were among the first places to fall. The bathhouse that everyone is praising is one of them. We should avoid crowded places like that for now. The electrical issue will be resolved soon. Before leaving, I still make my way through the crowd, trying subtly to save some of the ordinary people. Some of them glance at me over the crowd, but most ignore me. After all, I can't be everyone's savior. The next afternoon, when I return to the villa, I see that the rooftop terrace has completely transformed. The previously romantic, pastoral decor has been completely replaced by a layer of solar panels, leaving only a narrow pathway for walking around. Darling, check this out. High-powered binoculars. You can see whether a handsome guy miles away is dressed or not. My best friend excitedly shows me the telescope she has set up around the terrace. I'm too embarrassed to tell her that I've already ordered an embedded nanochip, which, combined with contact lenses, functions as a smart telescope. This device is still in the early stages of development and is absurdly expensive. But in the post-apocalyptic world, it's a top-secret weapon controlled by leaders from various bases because it can automatically upgrade. When they heard that someone was willing to pay a fortune and act as a guinea pig, they almost flew overnight, fearing I'd change my mind. But seeing the anticipation in my best friend's eyes, I pretend to be excited and peer through the binoculars. Suddenly, I see workers busy in a corner of the courtyard. Honey, don't you think that big stove is a bit out of place with the villa? My friend looks at me seriously. You don't understand the beauty of cooking with firewood. I can't argue. After all, in this post-apocalyptic world, my standards for food have dropped alarmingly, with a stove set up outside the villa and a full set of barbecue equipment nearby. It seems quite ordinary. We move a couple of stools out to the yard, taking in the villa that has been thoroughly transformed. The walls of the villa have been raised and reinforced with electrified wire fences. On the left side of the front yard, vegetables are planted, and on the right, rows of lush fruit trees. In a corner, a standard clay stove is piled up, and next to it, a metal shed houses a full room of fuel. The interior of the villa hasn't been largely altered, but the basement has essentially become a small wholesale market, fully stocked with agricultural products and labor protection goods. Looking at her home, which now looks very different from the poetry and distance of its past, my friend suddenly says, "Should we get some pets?" "What kind of pets?" "Dogs." My friend is timid, so getting a guard dog seems like a good idea. "Let's get some chickens, ducks, and geese instead." Best friend's eyes suddenly became resolute. "This time, I'm definitely taking my darling to have chicken." Best friend kept her word, and her actions were surprisingly swift. Before dawn the next day, I heard the loud crowing of a rooster. Checking my phone, it had only been 7 short days since the zombie outbreak. My best friend was out again, off on a date with her crush. I seized the opportunity to hide all the dangerous items I had ordered from the black market in the basement, though not quite real firearms. The modified repeating crossbows were not to be underestimated. Testing the feel, I suddenly heard an alarm going off outside. I instinctively went into combat mode, but quickly stuffed the handgun back into my clothes. The sound was distant. Probably a neighbor accidentally triggered the alarm. Just as I went downstairs, I saw my best friend hurrying through the courtyard towards me. She looked puzzled. "Was that an alarm?" "Yeah," I responded casually. "Probably the neighbors." Checking the time, the nanochip technicians should have already landed. I took my best friend to the hospital we had agreed on, where the technician administered the injection. The chip was injected into my body, causing a slight pain that left me a bit dazed. The highest secret of the apocalypse, and I had obtained it so easily. In the observation room, my best friend, belatedly realizing, asked me, "What was that injection for?" "For flu prevention," I lied casually. "But winter is over, it's just a precaution." Before leaving, the technician also gave us 2 sets of contact lenses that could connect to the chip or be worn independently. I had a set in the apocalypse too, but they were nowhere near as sophisticated as these. With that sorted, my best friend dragged me excitedly to pick up the new car she had reserved. I expected something stylish, but the massive, heavily armored vehicle before us left me speechless. I pulled my best friend aside. "Isn't it illegal to sell tanks privately?" "It's a modified car," she clarified. She seemed very pleased and didn't mind at all that she looked like a mini figurine next to it. However, returning home posed a challenge. I learned to drive in the apocalypse where licenses were unnecessary, and my best friend had failed her driving test multiple times. We looked at each other and eventually had to call a ride. The driver, a somewhat portly middle-aged man, was visibly impressed by the car, but didn't talk much. Just asked for the destination and started the journey. The ride home was not smooth, with many cars and emergency vehicles on the road, possibly due to a major incident. The car drove directly into the villa's garage, and just as the driver was retrieving his electric scooter from the trunk, a jarring alarm sound started echoing from afar. We weren't sure what had happened, but as a precaution, we immediately activated the villa's security system. The driver, puzzled but realizing it wasn't a good time to leave, stayed put. I went back to the basement to retrieve a gun, and when I returned, I found the driver chatting with my best friend. His curiosity about our vegetable garden far exceeded his concern about the ongoing alarms outside. My best friend simply told him it was a family-run agritourism venture. The driver seemed somewhat sympathetic when he heard it, turning a courtyard into an orchard, a swimming pool into a fish pond. It was no wonder people found it hard to understand why a beautiful hillside villa was transformed this way. I was actually quite curious about my best friend's renovation ideas, which seamlessly matched my own plans. After a while, the alarms outside finally stopped. I checked my phone, and everything on social media seemed peaceful, with celebrities dominating the trending topics. My best friend came down from the balcony, and looking through a telescope, noticed nothing unusual. Just then, the driver received another pickup nearby. Seeing that things seemed calm outside, he said goodbye and rode off on his electric scooter. I planned to spend the next few days patching up any gaps, when suddenly my phone displayed a new notification: multiple biting incidents in a city, suspected drug overdose. The top trending tweet was a short, shaky video, barely showing two overlapping figures. One of them was letting out a scream of despair. The comments below were a mixed bag, with many criticizing the issue of public safety and drug abuse. The news hit the trending topics due to the number of people following and discussing it, and it quickly climbed to the top of the list. I opened the video again, and after watching the blurry footage over and over, I just felt a chill spreading through my blood. The perpetrator in the video was undoubtedly someone infected with the zombie virus. But this video shouldn't have existed at this point in time. The zombie virus spreads rapidly, typically taking no more than 2 days to break out, not a week after initial signs as seen here. Someone had done something to make the zombie virus outbreak happen a week earlier than in the previous cycle. As more and more sensational videos surfaced, the trending topic heated up to the point of exploding, eventually causing the website to crash temporarily. I calmed myself down, thinking about how to gently break the news to my best friend. She just happened to come up from the basement, about to tell me something, when suddenly the doorbell rang. The camera revealed the daytime chauffeur. He was holding a dog, looking extremely anxious. "Sister, I don't know what crushed this dog's leg. I wanted to take it to the hospital but my electric bike is out of power." I didn't respond. Surprisingly, neither did my best friend. We instinctively exchanged glances. I explained, "It's dark, it's not safe." My friend just nodded. And suddenly the dog in the chauffeur's arms let out a sharp cry. I then noticed that it was a 4 or 5-month-old German Shepherd, skinny and blind in one eye. My friend seemed incredulous. "Arthur." After bringing the dog inside, my friend tried to contact the nearest pet hospital, but whether it was because it was after hours, she couldn't get through. I had a vague idea why, but I didn't stop her. The initial zombies are not a threat to me. I could fully protect her if she wanted to go out. The chauffeur was left alone in the yard, looking tired but still trying to reassure someone on the phone. "Honey, I'm not messing around. I'm at work. Don't worry, nothing's going to happen. Just lock the doors and windows. I'll be back tomorrow." Seeing me come out, he seemed a bit embarrassed. "Sorry to bother you today." I didn't bother with pleasantries, just pointed him to an outer room. "There's a new 3-piece set in there. Charge your e-bike and you can leave in the morning." Inside, my friend was still tending to the dog's wounds, so I carved 2 pieces of wood into makeshift splints for her. "Did you catch the news?" My friend shook her head. "I've been in the basement the whole time. There's no signal down there." She was skillful in bandaging the dog, and I couldn't really help. So I continued browsing my phone instead. However, the hot topic from the afternoon had disappeared. In its place were some infographics about emergency supplies, along with notices on hygiene and cautious use of medication. I tried searching for the word zombie, but the term was blocked. The results were clear. The virus had spread and was causing panic. In the dead of night, without any desire to sleep, I went to the rooftop to look through the telescope. The bustling city center was still busy with traffic and the surroundings unusually bright with lights. I then walked towards the small house where the chauffeur was staying, but before I got close, I heard loud snoring, but something was off. Years of surviving the apocalypse had honed my instincts. Without hesitation, I pushed the door open. Sure enough, under the blanket was just an old cell phone playing a recording. I didn't go back directly. Instead, I climbed onto the balcony from the window ledge and returned via the rooftop. The second floor was quiet and empty. Only the sound of the air circulation system was audible. He wasn't here. Since he wasn't asleep, he must have known that I wasn't in the main building. I quietly held onto the railing on the second floor and looked down. Sure enough, I spotted that sneaky figure behind the sofa in the living room on the first floor. The villa outside is fortified like a bunker, but it's really nice inside. It's just two girls. I can handle it myself. Hurry up and get over here. Who cares about that plain woman, my dear? I only fancy you. I silently approached the man from behind, listening indifferently as he boasted about how he exploited our kindness and planned to make full use of us, two innocent girls. Once he succeeded, the vile and malicious nature of humanity was fully exposed. Fortunately, I've seen too much of this in these apocalyptic times, and it no longer affects my mood. While the man was still animatedly talking, I had already positioned myself behind him. The man finally sensed my presence and instinctively turned his head. I relaxed my fingers and slightly tilted my head to measure the distance. Seeing that I was unarmed, the man suddenly laughed. Smart girl, little sister. I lifted my eyelids, surprise. Then, I efficiently twisted his neck. The body fell to the ground with a thud, and the woman on the phone was still screaming. I casually hung up the phone, starting to consider whether to dispose of the body overnight or find a place to hide it first. Suddenly, a slight noise caught my attention, and as I turned around, I drew my gun and cocked it, only to see my best friend standing at the corner of the staircase, staring at me in shock. I quickly reholstered the gun. Don't be scared. My best friend was terrified. You've already cocked it, don't put it back. The chandelier in the living room was turned on. Under the bright light, my best friend and I sat on single sofas on opposite sides, neither of us speaking for a moment. Finally, my best friend broke the silence. So, is he really dead? I nodded. I broke his fourth cervical vertebra. My best friend touched her nose. All these years, it must have been tough for you. I see your technique is quite skilled. Huh? I was confused for a moment before realizing what she meant. Right. I've picked up some side jobs over the years. My best friend probably felt that the conversation couldn't go on, so she casually turned on the TV, but coincidentally, the news was broadcasting about a virus leak, with infected individuals mutating and harming people. In just one day, the entire downtown area had fallen. It's the zombie virus. My best friend seemed to have made a significant decision. Looking up into my astonished eyes, let's lay it all out. I'm actually reborn. My best friend came over and hugged me. Zora, I know this is hard to accept, but the fact is, I nestled in her arms, responding softly, I know, because I am too. My best friend. She yanked me out of her embrace. What did you say? I'm also reborn, from the fourth year after the outbreak of the zombie virus. All right. My best friend struggled to digest the news, let go of me, and walked briskly to the hallway to grab the car keys. We need to make another trip to the research institute. Bring the body, I'll drive. I picked up the body. I used to drive an armored vehicle for a while. After stuffing the body into the trunk, I expertly started the car from the driver's seat. My best friend silently buckled her seatbelt in the passenger seat and reached out to grab the handle on the car roof. I chuckled, patting her leg to reassure her. Don't be scared. I'm a pro. You can shoot, drive an armored vehicle, and kill. My best friend looked at me suspiciously. Were you a mercenary in the post-apocalyptic world in your past life? No, I was just the team leader of the advanced team at Base A. My best friend paused, then smiled. No wonder I didn't understand. I didn't live to see Base A established. It was a struggle, but we finally carved a path through. Along the way, zombies had appeared, their movements slow, driven only by the instinct to hunt and kill the living. We drove into the campus of the Polytechnic University, which seemed deserted except for groups of zombies wandering around. The sound of the car engine attracted a few of them. After parking the car in front of the research institute, I signaled my best friend to wait and then quickly jumped out of the car. The unevolved zombies weren't even worth wasting bullets on. After swiftly dealing with the ones that followed us closely, I knocked on the window to signal my friend to get out. The institute's gates were wide open, losing any sense of the stern, no entry it once had. Following my friend into the main building, under the harsh white light of the emergency lamps, she pulled out Yuri's ID card to unlock the security door. Yuri, it took me a moment to remember that this was the guy my friend had been infatuated with for 2 years. A bad feeling suddenly hit me. We didn't come to the research institute for him, did we? My friend coldly confirmed my suspicion. For Yuri, my silence was deafening. Despite the high security of the lab, the bloodstains on the walls proved it was far from impenetrable. I grabbed a steel pipe as a precaution against any sudden incidents. Meanwhile, my friend calmly pulled out a foldable storage bag. She briskly unfolded the bag. Tonight's expenses are on young Master Yuri. She excitedly rummaged through various bottles and jars whose names I couldn't understand. Unable to grasp her actions, I went to the hallway and dealt with 2 zombies still in lab coats. After clearing the way, my friend stopped in front of a layout map of the institute. We're almost there. I glanced at the location of the lab, contemplating whether to lock Yuri in the basement for a couple of weeks first. When we reached the lab, my friend swiped her card to open the door as usual. As the door opened, a strong, acrid smell of blood hit us. Not good. I quickly pulled my friend back and raised the steel pipe to block an attacking zombie as the door opened. The terrifying crack of its teeth biting through the pipe and the force of the impact slammed me against the hallway wall. That's when I realized the zombie was over 2 meters tall. My friend exclaimed, "It's Wang Hui from the basketball team." The titan-like zombie didn't give up its attack because of the steel pipe. Instead, it reached for my face. Duck. In the nick of time, I pushed my friend aside, grabbed the steel pipe with both hands, and exerted all my strength. The massive zombie staggered just slightly. Seizing the moment, I kicked off the wall behind me, spun around, and drew my gun. Bang! The bullet pierced through the zombie's left shoulder. The zombie, now enraged, bit the pipe in half and roared as it lunged at me. The narrow hallway actually helped me. I leaped up, kicked the zombie in the chest, and aimed one last shot at its face. But nothing happened. My gun jammed. As the zombie lunged at me, the stench overwhelmed me, causing a brief blank in my mind. I needed a weapon. Suddenly, something heavy landed in my hand. In desperation, without time to think, I swung it at the zombie's head. With a thud, the titan-like zombie fell heavily to the ground like a mound of meat. My arm muscles spasmed severely, and the weapon fell from my hand. The intense fight that lasted just over 10 minutes seemed to drain all my strength. I knelt on the ground, tasting the blood in my throat. Zora, my friend, still shaken, scrambled over to check me thoroughly. Once she confirmed I was unharmed, she suddenly grabbed my arm, obsessively muttering, "I don't want this anymore. Let's just go home now." I held her hand and pulled her back. "Come on, miss. We've come this far." I stood up, fixed my gun, and tucked it back into its holster. Then picked up the weapon that had suddenly appeared, a distinctive trident steel mace, identical to the one in my special ability space. 16. When we finally entered the lab, we discovered the true hell on Earth. The bodies on the floor were so mutilated they were unrecognizable, and the splattered blood had oxidized into dark red stains. I checked the name tags on the corpses, feeling oddly disappointed they weren't Yuri. Now unafraid, my friend calmly stepped over the bodies to search the metal cabinets behind. I looked around and saw nothing but 2 corpses and a zombie that had been taken out. None of them was Yuri. I wondered, "Isn't Yuri here?" "Yuri isn't here," my best friend replied calmly from a corner. "Last lifetime." At this time, I was accompanying him back to his hometown in the mountains to pick up a friend. Confused, I listened as she suddenly stood up, holding a disassembled hard drive and smiled wryly. So in this life, he didn't even have the chance to take his research with him. Suddenly, I realized something I had always overlooked. Yuri's lab was part of the Ryan Biological Research Institute, and the only state-run vaccine development institute in the late post-apocalyptic world was originally Ryan Biological. After clearing away the driver's body, we didn't linger but headed straight home. Both of us returned fully accomplished, in more ways than one, yet, I still had a question. Why would Yuri think of researching a zombie vaccine? My friend sneered. Although Yuri is a jerk in personal affairs, he is indeed a genius in his professional field. It was his research project, like a blind cat running into a dead rat. If it hadn't been for the mountain city falling before his project was published, he might have lived longer than us, more than his research on virus vaccines. My friend's attitude towards Yuri surprised me even more. So, you knew Yuri was a jerk? Oh dear, my friend suddenly became embarrassed. I'm attracted to intelligence, you know, I laughed. Any intelligence lover would rise from a pile of zombies to bite you for that. Just as we joked, a fleeting shadow passed in the rearview mirror. It was a motorcycle, so I eased off the accelerator, deliberately slowing down to let it catch up. Sure enough, the motorcycle sneaked up parallel to our car, then suddenly threw a bag of caltrops under our tires. My expression turned icy. Without hesitation, I turned the car around and headed straight for them. The motorcycle couldn't evade in time and immediately tipped over. My friend and I got out of the car, just in time to see two people clumsily climbing up from beside the motorcycle. One just got up and before he could speak, I shot him in the head. Seeing this, the other one fell to his knees. Don't kill me, please, don't kill me, I was forced. As I still aimed the gun at him, he turned to plead with my friend, believe me. I'm innocent, I'm just a student, look at my student ID. I pressed the gun to his head. I'd advise you not to reach for that, it could misfire. My friend, puzzled, tilted her head. Do I look like a saint to you? She walked over to the body of the other man, searched his coat thoroughly, and then threw what she found to me. It was a police handgun. Anyone daring enough to rob these days is desperate, she said calmly to the pale-faced youth. Murdering a cop on your first day. You deserve no mercy. Another gunshot rang out, and the night returned to silence. My friend and I carefully picked over what could be useful, not sparing even the motorcycle. As we started the car again, my friend wiped the sweat from her forehead and burst out laughing. Darling, do you know how I died in my last life? I looked straight ahead, refusing. Honey, I'd rather not hear, but I want to tell you, she winked. I died of a burst of saintly compassion. Yuri and I were trapped in his old home in the mountain town, running out of supplies. When his first love was about to give birth, the child was difficult to deliver. Yuri died on the way to find a doctor, and I got bitten to death by zombies while blocking the door to buy time. My heart clenched. You were a very great girl. My friend seemed to laugh through tears, wiping her eyes. Let's not talk about it. Yuri died for his first love, and I died for his promise. God indeed punishes every love-struck fool equally. 17. A week after the outbreak, zombies began to roam the mountains. This was not a good sign. If even such a remote place had zombies lurking, it meant that the city and its suburbs had completely fallen. Ever since she got Yuri's research report and those bottles and jars, my best friend hadn't left the house. Reluctantly, I had to take on the responsibility of cooking by myself. Unfortunately, cooking skills are like savings. If you don't have them, you just don't. After ruining 2 pots in a row, I settled for instant noodles. After a week of this diet, my friend appeared behind me like a wandering soul. Zora, from now on, the kitchen is off limits to you, despite looking pale. She coldly managed to chase me out of the kitchen with a spatula, washing, chopping, heating oil, and cooking. Her movements flowed seamlessly. Amidst the kitchen fumes, she didn't forget to toss a clove of garlic at my head. What are you staring at? Set the table. All right. I caught the garlic and placed it on the table, then obediently arranged the dishes and utensils from the dishwasher. By the time I was done, the food was ready to serve. A simple meal of 1 meat and 1 vegetable dish was incredibly appetizing. The vegetables were crisp and vibrant, and the meat dish was succulent with a shiny red sauce. I nearly licked the plate clean. My friend seemed to come back to life too, making herself some goji berry tea before diving back into her research. Her room door was always open, yet it felt as separated from the world as the Berlin Wall. The piles of documents and nameless equipment seemed to appear out of nowhere, making me feel dizzy just walking by. I guess that's just my natural repulsion to academia. After casually feeding the dog some meat, I set up a lounge chair on the grass to soak up the sun. With no internet on my phone and public electricity being intermittent, thankfully our ample solar panels were enough to sustain our electricity needs, yet, we seldom turned on the lights at night. Our hillside villa blended into the night forest, which actually made it safer. I wasn't afraid of zombies. But I had to be wary of other humans with ulterior motives. 11 o'clock. Shoot, the blank round flew out, perfectly missing the target and instead hitting a rooster on the side. The rooster, caught off guard, stumbled and paused, angry. It flapped its wings and looked around with beady eyes, eventually trotting over to peck at my friend's shoes. Ouch, that hurt. I can't stand up, my friend said, collapsing dramatically on the ground. She grabbed my hand and shook it. Darling, the gun is so heavy, my arms hurt. Can we stop? I sighed in resignation and sat down. Next time we go out, I'll try to find you a compact pistol to bring back. My friend was puzzled. Why go out when it's so dangerous? Because we need to train. I lay on the grass, turning to look at her. Before I joined the A District Vanguard, all my skills were honed through countless life and death battles with zombies, even after joining the Vanguard. The systematic training wasn't enough to combat all the zombies, because zombies evolve. Her eyes widened. They can become even more terrifying. Yes, I confirmed with a smile, but humans can evolve too. She hesitated. Did you evolve then? No. I shook my head. I survived all those times by relying on my alertness to danger and practical experience. But if we let our skills deteriorate, we'll be no different from ordinary people. She fell silent for a moment, then grabbed the gun and stood up. Let's continue. If my darling is so formidable, I can't be the weak link. Spurred by determination, my friend seemed ready to embrace the challenge. During the day, I practiced with firearms and crossbows outdoors, and at night, I still found time for experiments. Taking advantage of a brief break, I stopped someone. Have some juice, it's freshly squeezed. My best friend looked at me skeptically. You made it. It was made with a juicer. I pushed the cup into her hands. Go on, drink it. My friend sipped it like a cat drinking water, then shuddered. If the oranges knew they'd taste this bad after being juiced, they'd die unhappy. It's not the oranges' fault. I shrugged. I forgot to peel them. Struggling, my friend took another sip and gradually got used to the taste. You know, it's quite refreshing and invigorating, she exclaimed. If I had been half as focused in my studies back then, Ivy League schools would have come to enroll me themselves. I laughed. Now, Ivy League schools aren't even worthy of taking you away. My friend deeply agreed. Honest, fair, and truly meaningful. A month ago, we adopted a German Shepherd who had recovered from its injuries. My friend named it Arthur. Although Arthur was blind in one eye, he still looked majestic and was responsible for patrolling the entire outer courtyard. The day I fixed the motorcycle, I was finally ready to leave. My friend prepared some emergency food and medicine for me and tried to fit a 5-liter energy drink into my backpack. Mom, I'm going to fight zombies, not go on vacation. Mom, my friend raised an eyebrow. I know, that's why I prepared this for you. She pulled out another backpack from behind like Doraemon. The pistol has been maintained, and I've prepared 30 bullets. There's also a crossbow and a detector under there. My face lit up with various expressions. You want me to parade around with all these? Eventually, I packed the compressed food, purified water, and disinfectant into the backpack. As for the weapons, aside from the pistol which I kept close, I threw everything else into the space. Ever since I successfully retrieved the Trident steel mace last time, this ability seemed to have been activated. After several trials, I finally mastered the method. Apart from the initial activation device, I could now take and place other items at will. It was like having a built-in small backpack, but I hadn't told my friend about this yet, fearing she might even stuff a self-heating hot pot in there. This time I didn't plan to go too far, just along the national highway to the west through the suburbs, where the land was vast and sparsely populated, preventing zombies from gathering in large numbers and forming a horde. The scorching sunlight made the air ripple with heat. I pulled my hat brim low, feeling even the frames of my sunglasses getting hot. In my previous life, I had to fight through hordes of zombies for a mission, but this time I intended to do the opposite. After adjusting the electronic binoculars in my eyes, I hid behind a birch tree and killed the last zombie 100 meters away with my crossbow. Under the relentless high heat, the corpse emitted a foul stench of decay. I pulled up my mask and rode my motorcycle to the next destination. When I passed a small gas station, I stopped to fill up the tank. Just as I was about to take the nozzle, I noticed a lock hanging on it. It seemed this place had been privatized. Such occurrences were not rare in the post-apocalyptic world. Sure enough, seeing my intention to refuel, a burly man emerged from a nearby cabin. He sized me up for a bit before grinning, revealing yellow teeth. Handsome, nice motorcycle. Having cut my hair short and dressed neutrally before leaving, at first glance, my gender was not obvious. I didn't bother to correct these trivial matters, just nodded towards the lock. What's the deal? I like doing business with smart people. The man's smile widened, a gold bar to fill it up. I narrowed my eyes. Looks like this is a business I can't afford. 2 months was not enough to exhaust everyone's resources. Daring to ask for the sky at this time, he probably wasn't a good egg. As I mounted the bike preparing to leave, he grabbed my handlebar. Don't be in such a hurry, handsome. He lowered his head with a smile. I told you, your motorcycle is nice. It seemed he had no intention of leaving empty-handed. I looked around, considering whether to use my hand crossbow or just save some effort and smash his head with a steel club. But just then, the man glanced unconsciously towards the cabin. I touched my nose, pondered for a moment, and then got off the bike. You can have the motorcycle, but I need supplies. The man seemed surprised by my readiness to agree, and after a moment, he burst out laughing. Fair enough, good looking, it's only right to reciprocate. I'll give you something nice too. Saying this, he clapped me on the shoulder and led me towards the house. I had guessed right. There was another man inside, tall, but thin and lanky. He resembled a bizarre stick insect. He was holding a sniper rifle silently, looking more desperate than the muscular man. Fabian, this young guy knows the drill. I'll treat him well. As the muscular man said this, he began to reach for the keys to unlock a tightly secured door. Suddenly, Fabian stood up, slamming the butt of his gun onto the man's hand. The man cursed loudly from the pain. Are you fucking crazy? Fabian then pointed the gun at me. Idiot, open your damn eyes. This guy's a cop too. The man's expression changed instantly. Fabian, looks like we've got new merchandise. I didn't move, just stood there calmly watching the two men approach. What's in the room? You don't need to know. I watched as the man put the keys back in his pocket and then pressed down on my shoulder. As long as you behave, I guarantee you won't want for anything. I lowered my eyelashes, noting Fabian's shadow stopping a step away. He still held the gun. Bring her backpack here. The man took my backpack, and Fabian flipped it over, causing cookies and bottled water to roll out onto the ground. Fabian snorted with laughter. Thought you were tough. He put away his gun, turning to sit back on the sofa by the door. Fabian, aren't you going to search her? You do it, I'm not interested. The man gave a sleazy smile. Then I'll check if the goods are fine. I took off my jacket, leaving my upper body in just a tight t-shirt, revealing everything. The man completely let down his guard, reaching to search further. That's when I swiftly grabbed his wrist and twisted it sharply at the joint. The man screamed in pain, and I shoved the barrel of the gun into his mouth. Without any hesitation, I pulled the trigger. Blood splattered from the back of the man's head. Hearing the noise, Fabian turned around hastily, raising his gun, only to find his companion's body falling. Your gun is too slow. I grabbed the barrel of the sniper rifle, lifting it upwards, and a bullet shot into the ceiling, but in the next instant, my throat was suddenly constricted, and I was flipped over by a strong grip. I hadn't expected Fabian to be faster than his gun, but my body's instincts allowed me to grab the arm around my throat first. I didn't struggle free. Instead, I bent my body and used the arm to lift myself, kicking forcefully at his face with all my strength. The kick broke Fabian's nose. He staggered back several steps, and I didn't give him a chance to recover, launching a powerful flying kick. He slid several meters and crashed loudly against the metal door of the cabin. How is this possible? He couldn't utter a complete sentence, coughing up clotted blood. I approached to finish him quickly, but suddenly a cold light flashed. In a split second, I swung my steel club, the clash of metal deafening. The dagger was knocked flying. Even so, the confrontation was far from over. The sharp blade, still carrying the force of a swift wind, sliced off a lock of my hair. Fabian was at the end of his strength. I didn't look at him again but walked over to pick up the dagger and examined it closely, yet he couldn't stand being ignored and, mustering his last breath, he asked, "Who are you?" "Really," I replied indifferently, "a woman." After dealing with the two of them, I searched the burly man's body, found the keys, and unlocked the metal door inside. Behind the door were simple, divided compartments. Under the dim light, 4 pale-faced, raggedly dressed girls were visible. No explanation was needed for me to guess the purpose of this room. After letting them out, I handed the keys to the eldest woman. "Thank you for saving us." I didn't accept their gratitude. simply advising them that if they didn't want to stay here, they should head west. There will be a small safe zone established there. It would also become one of the 6 major bases in the future. I didn't touch the goods in the room, only taking Fabian's dagger and sniper rifle, but, just before leaving, I surprisingly found 2 chilled watermelons in the fridge. This item, being so common in summer, had been overlooked by us during stockpiling. I was carrying a watermelon in each hand when a little girl ran after me. Sister, I turned to look at her. Take me with you, she pleaded, eyes filled with hope. I can heal, I'm useful, you're a doctor, yes, but I don't need medicine. I didn't quite understand. Then how do you heal? I don't know, but I healed them before when they were sick without medicine. As I questioned her, the girl became hesitant, her voice fading, yet, skepticism grew within me. What's your name? The girl, head bowed, timidly answered, Winnie. Winnie. Hearing that name, I understood instantly. Your ability is very useful. You will become the chief medical officer in District D. Saving tens of thousands of injured, your achievements will be recorded in history. Hope rekindled in the girl's eyes. Can I follow you? I patted her head. Keep heading west, and you'll find those who truly need you. Bringing back 2 chilled watermelons earned me unprecedented treatment from my best friend. She even took time out of her busy schedule to make a fruit salad as a reward for me. I got carried away and carelessly pulled out a dagger in front of her. Her eyes widened, and I immediately yelled, What is this? How did this appear in my hand? But my friend calmed down instead. You're overacting. Tone it down. Feeling guilty, I hugged her. Darling, she snorted coldly. Normally you just call me hey, oi, Xana, and now you're calling me darling after doing something wrong. I ended up spilling everything about my spatial abilities, unsurprisingly. My friends started asking me to conjure up handsome men, that, I really can't do, then make an elephant. My friend stopped me. What are you up to now? Goodbye mom, today I set sail. After resting at home for a few days, I started working on the newly acquired weapons, using my experience from a past life. I worked day and night until my friend's sneaky behavior interrupted me. One morning, disheveled, she burst into my room and placed a silver metallic briefcase on the table. My heart skipped a beat. As the white mist of cryogenic nitrogen escaped, I saw 4 metal syringes arranged inside the suitcase. I quickly closed the case after just one glance. Don't tell me it's real. Of course not. This is just a prototype made according to Yuri's experimental data. It hasn't even been tested on real subjects. I didn't understand, but I was already greatly shaken. It's just a Cypriot product. Vaccines aren't that easy to develop, so the apocalypse wouldn't come after all. My best friend said in a light tone, pulling a small brown bottle from under the table. This is quite an interesting thing, I remarked, examining it from all sides, but couldn't figure out anything special. This is my version 2.0 of nitroglycerin. Theoretically, it's more powerful and uses less material, but its biggest drawback is that it's not easy to transport, but you have spatial abilities, so it won't collapse upon impact. It's a perfect match for my 2.0. I was familiar with this stuff, having directly handled the finished product before, and its power was not to be underestimated. I squeezed the little bottle and looked at my friend. Want to test its effects? Her eyes lit up instantly. Can we? I gave her a wink and smiled. Is there anything stopping us? Of course. We couldn't test the explosion in the yard. I drove her to another mountain top to test its effects. We even lured a few zombies there with some frozen meat. The zombies began to fight over the raw meat under the tree, while my friend eagerly held a crossbow. As I was thinking about how to deal with the remaining zombies later, she had already hit the bottle marked with a red label with an arrow. Boom, the explosion was deafening, and the blast wave even shook our tank-like SUV. In just a second, the zombies were completely wiped out. I was stunned. My friend, however, was very pleased with her research. This is much more interesting than studying viral molecular formulas. Before the apocalypse, I imagined a quiet life, growing vegetables and raising chickens, guarding our supplies. After the apocalypse began, I ended up blowing up mountains with my best friend. I suspect my friend has unlocked some bizarre tech tree. She went from being a delicate sweet girl to a pink-haired rebel who plays with explosives. Unfortunately, our raw materials were limited. As we never expected that chemical supplies would be our biggest consumption after the apocalypse, when the weather turned colder, the zombies' movements slowed down. I spread out the map, planning to drive to a city next to T-City before winter. The area was open, colder, and situated at a junction, likely having become a small trading hub over the past 6 months. We had accumulated quite a bit of resources earlier, but if we stopped there, we might not even make it until we ran out of supplies. At the moment, the most urgent task was to obtain 2 passes for a city. These passes weren't very useful now, but once a city transformed into a safe zone, they would be a strong guarantee. I'll prepare the exchangeable goods. My friend excitedly drew a route. We can follow National Highway 213 west, passing through the Grotto Scenic area. Not us, I corrected as I rolled up the map. Just me. My friend paused, then frowned and accused. You're actually suggesting a divorce. I massaged my temples. Do you know how far it is from here to a city, even by expressway? It's more than 10 hours drive. I reopened the map and circled a landmark along the way. If we want to save time, we must go through this industrial park. The area has a high population density and many factories. Once an infection breaks out, it's basically a total loss. I looked at my friend seriously. Do you understand what tens of thousands of zombies mean? She suddenly pursed her lips and answered very seriously, a zombie tide. I patted her shoulder. I have enough experience in solo combat in such places. There won't be a problem. She nodded in agreement. That's good. Then, we'll split up. You go to a city, and I'll head to the city center. I raised my voice abruptly. How can you go into the city center? Don't you know how dangerous that is? She glanced at me. Now you know how I feel, right? We drove out of T-City in the early hours before dawn. I was responsible for driving, while my friend operated a drone to scout our surroundings. We didn't bring much this time, but the goods were quite scarce. Items like dry tobacco and high-proof alcohol were now genuinely valuable. I also stashed some weapons and medicines in my space, just in case. Maybe it was an illusion, but I felt like the capacity of my space had increased. Now, I could easily fit a crossbow over half a meter wide. The expressway was clogged with abandoned vehicles. It took us a whole day just to exit and drive into the territory of a city, and right at the junction of a city and T-City was that industrial area. The two managed to jump in, just as another wave of zombies surged towards us. We sped away from the chaos, the undead momentarily scattered by the force of our departure. As we drove into the safe distance, I finally allowed myself a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline begin to ebb. Thanks, I said, glancing back at our unexpected allies who were now catching their breath in the back seat. No problem, the man replied, checking his equipment for damage. Staying alive is what counts. The drone's static crackle broke the brief silence. You guys okay? My friend's voice came through, tinged with concern but strong. We're all good, I responded. Just picked up a couple of new friends. Ahead, the uranium power field loomed, a beacon of relative safety in the chaos. As we approached the gates, I knew that despite the day's unexpected turns, we had survived another encounter in this unforgiving world. The car slowed to a stop at the rendezvous point, and for a moment, all was calm. The only sound was our collective relief. 2 people tumbled into the car in a chaotic frenzy. The chubby one collapsed in the back seat. That's too many. The man glanced outside at the increasing number of zombies. At this rate, none of us will make it out. He turned to me and said, "Open the door." My best friend, who was driving, ignored him and simply threw a dark bottle out the window. Then she opened the sunroof. I set up the sniper rifle on the roof, estimated the distance, and took a shot. Bang! The explosion roared to life instantly. I pulled out my earplugs and shouted into the car, speed up, I can hear you." My best friend floored the gas pedal, and the wind roared past my ears. After repeating the process 3 times, we finally broke through the horde of zombies. The chubby one was utterly shocked. The man looked at me with a scrutinizing gaze. After successfully passing through the industrial park, my best friend stopped the car. The man got out and handed me a card. "Thanks for today. You might find this useful." I took it and saw it was a pass to the A City distribution center. Facing my questioning look, the man smiled. "Seeing the cargo in your car and the risks you took to get here, I assumed you were headed to the distribution center as well. Are you going there too?" "We're from a city, and we came here on a mission," the chubby one interjected. "Captain, we've lost the signal." The man didn't seem concerned. "That's normal. I asked them to regroup within 5 minutes." My best friend stuck her head out from the driver's seat. "It's getting dark, darling." So the man waved goodbye to me. "Safe travels." you should arrive by early morning if you travel through the night. Before getting in the car, I suddenly asked the man, which squad are you the captain of? He paused, then said somewhat apologetically, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Yetta, captain of the A City 571 squad. He was quite well known. A name that resonated like thunder. Who would have thought that the person I saved today was the future leader of District D? Let's go together then, I offered generously. But just to be clear, you guys are driving at night. We arrived at the distribution center in the early morning, and it had indeed become a significant hub. A city had cleared an area and assigned squads to patrol around. My best friend and I, each carrying a large backpack, moved from stall to stall like it was a bustling market. Luxury items like watches and bags had fallen out of the mainstream barter market, while jerky and fresh fruits and vegetables were in high demand. Tobacco and alcohol had always been solid currency, and medicines were so scarce that they were nearly impossible to find. Just as we were about to trade some tobacco for an electromagnetic cannon that needed charging, Yetta stepped in and bought all the remaining tobacco and alcohol. And he gave me something I couldn't refuse, 1,000 bullets. The generosity made me suspect they had cleared out an armory. As we were leaving, Yetta formally invited us to stay. I knew this place would grow into the largest safe zone over the next 3 years. Yetta's proposal was probably the best option for us at the time, but my best friend and I declined. Places with many people always breed conflicts. This was even more true in a post-apocalyptic world. We wanted to start over with a simpler way of life. 23. Does it look good to stick it here? Stick it at the entrance. Who put Spring Festival couplets inside the house? Just 4 words, that's hardly a couplet. Is the foo character ready? Don't rush me, I'm learning as I go. We're out of red paper. Maybe I should cut up my red underwear for the year of the zodiac. Zora, get out. On the 226th day of the zombie virus outbreak, we welcomed the new year in a transformed villa. This was the first new year since the apocalypse began. There were no fireworks, no bell tolls, no colorful lights, and no bustling crowds. More than half of the global population had been wiped out, and not all the survivors could endure this harsh winter. The basic framework of the 6 major regions has been established. Over time, they will grow and unite to form the newest barriers on the territory. I am unsure if the future post-apocalypse will continue to develop as I remember, or perhaps, under our feeble flapping, storms have already begun to brew in unknown corners. Yet, the switch for the protective shield in the corner of the supernatural space remains unreachable. Maybe it was never meant to belong to this apocalyptic